Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel Comics. Starting with the ability to replicate superhuman talents. Chapter 101. Wow. In the stinky sewage, an afterimage suddenly jumped towards the stone steps. Of course, the one who came out of the bath was not the bikini girl, but Mr. Batman, who was wearing a black battle suit and a few rotten vegetable leaves on his bat mask. Sniffing the unpleasant smell on his clothes, Batman, worthy of being a ruthless person, walked towards the depths of the cave without changing his expression. His escape route was naturally the maze where Gino locked Batman up last time. Now the smart Batman decided to do the opposite and lure Lei Xiaogu and the League of Assassins here. Batman reached out and took out a detoxification capsule from his bat belt, put it in his mouth, chewed and swallowed. What if Batman could become a first-line hero? He never fell into the same pit twice. Last time, after being forced to drink hallucinogenic drugs by Gino and seeing his dead parents, Batman developed a method that could solve the problem on the market. Antidote tablets for most poisons. As the drug takes effect and the hallucinogenic effect weakens, Batman can barely see the scene in front of him clearly. The familiar owl statue stands at the entrance. Batman casts his gaze down the maze. Since he was trapped last time, he has memorized the various routes of this maze in his head. To put it in Eastern strategic terms, it means that the right time, right place, and the right people take advantage of the first two. Without much hesitation, Batman gently dropped his cape and strode toward the maze. When he blends into the darkness and waits for an opportunity, it will be his home court. Not long after he left, the assassins from the League of Assassins quickly followed Batman's escape route and found the maze. Owl, the leader, was none other than Lei Xiaogu, who had given Batman a few darts. The old man stared at the owl statue with a sarcastic face. Of course he learned what happened from Talia, the spy his unfilial daughter brought to Gotham. A group of huge councils that had been operating for more than 100 years were destroyed overnight by a mysterious masked man. Lei Xiaogu felt that if a force was so miserable, it might as well be killed by a piece of tofu. The old guy has also traveled in Asia, so he naturally knows some slang. He waved his hand, and his subordinates burst into the maze like beans. Lei Xiaogu naturally knew what Batman was thinking. After all, he is also a master of strategy. Isn't he just using his geographical advantage to counterattack? But Lei Xiaogu, as the leader of the Assassin Alliance, didn't care. And he found a very interesting thing. This masked man in black uniform never seemed to kill anyone. In Lei Xiaogu's view, what is the difference between this and psychosis? How can you protect what you want to protect without killing people? Therefore, in Lei Xiaogu's view, this is also a battle of ideas. He wants to force the masked man to kill, break the other party's principles, and kill people. Lei Xiaogu stood quietly on the stone steps above the smelly ditch, looking up at the huge maze. From time to time, a comatose assassin would be carried out of the maze entrance by his companions. Leader, the captain of the assassin team, knelt on one knee, his eyes frightened. We can't find that guy. He is as invisible in the dark, and his lurking skills are extremely good. And the man stopped talking. Lei Xiaogu frowned slightly. Go on. Moreover, the squad leader lowered his head to show respect. I think his close combat skills have shadows of the Assassin's League. This is not difficult to recognize. The close combat of the Assassin League is ranked among the best in the underground world. It is like a large sect in a novel about cultivating immortals. If they are taught by the same master, you can always tell the clues. You mean he was once a member of the League of Assassins? Lei Xiaogu's eyes narrowed, and he thought of a young man he was quite optimistic about not long ago. The other party was the best choice in terms of both understanding and character, and he had once thought of cultivating him as his successor. It's a pity that the young man didn't have martial ethics and ran away without saying a word after learning the skills. Interesting. Lei Xiaogu glanced at the narrow maze. In this kind of terrain, his sword couldn't be used at all. So the old man dropped his sword and walked into the maze wearing only his leather armor. As a martial arts master, Lei Xiaogu is equally confident in his boxing and kicking skills. After stepping into the maze, Lei Xiaogu discovered that the path in this maze was complicated and difficult to find. Sometimes he would turn left and end up back to the same place inexplicably. Lei Xiaogu was silent for a moment, looking at the 10-meter high wall. He was certainly not a fool. Since he couldn't get out, he might as well jump up the wall to see what was going on. The old man bent his legs slightly to gather strength, and when he was about to jump up, there was a roaring wind behind him. Without looking back, Lei Xiaogu made a beautiful backward and bent posture to dodge, then turned around and looked to his side. A tall figure was slowly walking out of the corner of the maze tunnel. Batman, wearing a black cape, stared at Lei Xiaogu expressionlessly, but the dart he had shot at the opponent was already stuck in the wall and trembling slightly. This was undoubtedly a warning. Batman stared at the old man, the blue eyes in his mask were full of indifference, and said slowly, "Get out of my city." There were no fancy moves, and there was no escaping from each other. Lei Xiaogu and Batman soon fought together. The collision of fists and palms was mixed with kicks, and the battle between the two was tense. But Lei Xiaogu became more and more frightened as he fought. Just as his subordinates reported, there were hints of the Assassin's League in the opponent's moves. Another punch struck, and Lei Xiaogu seized the gap and kicked Batman's arm, which was raised to block, and used his inertia to jump back and distance himself. If Lei Xiaogu's original expression was just a bit playful, then the old man's cold eyes at this moment seemed to eat Batman alive. No one likes a traitor, and after the previous confrontation, Lei Xiaogu also determined that the other party was a homeless man who had escaped from the Assassin's League not long ago, and called himself Buslu. Traitor. Lei Xiaogu's eyes flashed with murderous intent, and he whistled to summon nearby assassins to come. Lei Xiaogu no longer planned to play the cat-and-mouse game, he wanted to overturn the table. However, Batman took out his grappling gun and shot it into the wall. He plans to move the battlefield and continue to consume the strength and energy of this group of assassins, at least until the Gotham police successfully intercept the truck carrying the dirty bomb. However, the hook that was supposed to be hung on the wall suddenly came loose, as if someone had thrown it away. A lazy and hoarse voice sounded above the two of them, the pervert in the tights, and the 80-year-old man who ran out of the mental hospital in the middle of the night. "Please stop what you are doing. Listen to what I have to say. Stop beating me. You won't kill anyone with this kind of beating. Be more brutal." The two of them looked up at the same time. On the high wall of the maze, a majestic figure stood on the wall with his hands in his pockets. A white owl mask covered his face and eyes. He tilted his head and looked at the two people, looking strange and scary in the darkness. Man is a very strange creature. To put it bluntly, two dogs fighting for a bone may fight to the death, but when a third dog appears, the two dogs may agree to fight to the death. To put it nicely, two robbers robbed 22 gold coins and divided them equally. But when 3 robbers divided the 22 gold coins, 2 people might die. Of course, neither description is accurate. However, looking at the white-masked man who suddenly appeared, Batman and Lei Xiaogu stopped fighting with each other in a tacit understanding. "It's you. You are the mysterious person who destroyed the Court of Owls." Batman and Lei Xiaogu spoke almost at the same time. Ba bang bang. The mysterious masked man, that is, Gino, clapped his hands in great agreement. He rubbed his palms and said mockingly, "So, when will you start fighting, so that I can join in the fun?" The eager tone of voice and body movements seemed to make the two of them fight immediately. Gino's so-called joining in the fun is to harvest a wave of negative points. If he spends more than 4,000, he can exchange for another golden legend. Then when the time comes, he will run to find a magician or something, go to heaven through a medium, and then find God. With a swipe of his card, he will be directly promoted to the T0 rank in the DC Universe's combat power rankings. Just create the world on the spot. Thanos. Snap your fingers. One sneeze can kill 100, which is not too much. Of course, this is all Kino's wishful thinking. According to his understanding as a pseudo-comicist, God has divided himself into several parts many years ago. There are such weird concepts as the voice of God and the body of God. Never take things seriously in the DC universe, because no one can tell how many weird and bizarre settings there are. But this does not affect the points earned in Kino. Who can have too much of a good thing? Listening to Gino's words, Batman, oh no, Lei Xiaogu's already gloomy face became even more ugly, as if ice water could be squeezed out of the folds of his old face in the next second. What the hell is this fool talking about, mistaking the fight between him and Batman for monkeys fighting in a circus? Don't want to. The white mask turned and swept across the cold expressions of the two people, and they sighed slightly for a while. He glanced at Batman, who was tensed up as if facing a powerful enemy, and a smile appeared on his lips. I remember telling you last time that I would show you after you become stronger. Now, how prepared are you? Before he finished speaking, Gino jumped down from the 10-meter-high wall with ease. The biological posture was fully activated, causing the marble roadside under his feet to shatter, leaving 2 large footprints and holes. Horror, the extreme fear brought about by the terror suddenly seemed like an invisible hand suddenly clasping Lei Xiaogu's throat. He dares to swear on the honor of his wife, who has been dead for hundreds of years, that he has never seen such a terrifying human being. To be honest, the moment the guy jumped from the high wall and landed on the concrete roadside, the hairs all over Lei Xiaogu's body stood up, as if the person who jumped down was not a person, but an inhuman existence, even involving the legendary supernatural being. Exist. Boom. Gino controlled the position of the creature, and lightly sounded the command. The surrounding air compressed and made a sharp explosion. Stupid boy. Lei Xiaogu reacted quickly. He had already seen clearly who his real opponent was now. The grudge against the traitor Batman can be put aside first. The only solution is to survive from this masked man. He looked at Batman and said, "You and I, kill this guy first." Batman didn't answer Lei Xiaogu. On the contrary, he was thinking about the retreat plan. It was undoubtedly a reckless choice to face a terrifying opponent that he already knew without any preparation. He had no intention of sharing intelligence with Lei Xiaogu. On the contrary, Batman planned to borrow a knife to kill someone. The poker face moved up and down slightly, and Batman said coldly, "Okay, let's get in together." Lei Xiaogu breathed a sigh of relief. If there were 2 people, the pressure might be alleviated. If the opponent was really strong, he could sell Batman and run away. 2 old coins crossed out. The strategy master is ready. Facing the mysterious man with unfathomable strength, they could only use their full energy. The 3 of them faced each other silently. Gotcha. Lei Xiaogu bit his finger, and bright red blood flowed down the fingertips. He smeared the blood on his cheek. As the leader of the Assassin's League and the owner of the Lazarus Pool, how could Lei Xiaogu not have any unique skills? The next moment, the originally thin old man suddenly grew taller. The withered muscles swelled again and became even stronger. The thin body stood up from the ground, as if it had transformed into a giant, and the limbs continued to expand and become larger. Tear. The clothes are torn and stretched. Years of soaking in the spring water have filled Lei Xiaogu's body with a terrifying and weird energy. They can give Lei Xiaogu greater power in a short period of time, but at the cost of losing part of his sanity and becoming furious and bloodthirsty. Roar. Lei Xiaogu, who transformed into a giant more than 4 meters tall, looked up to the sky and roared. From a distance, he looked like a living demonic muscular man. The mung bean-sized eyes stared intently at Gino's figure. Then, the giant's legs suddenly jumped, causing strong winds to blow his clothes, and driving his huge body to kill the young man like a giant god descending from the sky. Under that terrifying physique, Gino's height of over 1.8 meters looks like a tiny person. Awesome, so the Lazarus Pool has this effect. Gino was not in a hurry, staring at Lei Xiaogu's red and hot surface skin with interest. It looked like the terrifying skin of a demon. Moreover, there were unknown traces of a pentagram engraved on the surface, like a demon in hell. It looks evil and ominous. Roar. Lei Xiaogu's raised fists gathered unparalleled power, and a strange flushed smile appeared on his demonic face. He seemed to have seen the scene of smashing the young man's body with one punch and killing him. Then, he saw the masked man slowly raise his hand and make a fist. Boom. As the 5 fingers came together, a series of vibrations sounded in the air, and the terrifying power exploded in the maze. Gino raised his head and looked at the falling giant above him. The expression under his mask remained unchanged. I don't have the habit of looking up at people. Then, Gino punched upwards. The speed is so fast that it cannot even be caught with the naked eye. OB has been on the edge. Oh no. Batman, who was watching the battle, only saw a burst of punches that could be caught with the naked eye gathering in the air, like an air cannon, taking a straight trajectory and slamming into the devil muscle man Lei Xiaogu. A circle of cloud waves also exploded in the sky. Then, boom, the earth-shaking sound suddenly exploded in his ears, so loud that Batman couldn't help but cover his ears. The giant godlike old man was blown away by a punch like a kite with its string cut off. His huge body smashed through the underground passage and scattered gravel, turning into a stream of light and disappearing into the sky in the dark night. Goo goo. The moon is in the sky at night, and the black curtain hangs. On the branches, night owls chirped. The dimly lit Wayne Castle is so dark that you can't see anything. Bruce Wayne sat quietly on the soft single sofa, looking at the distant outline of Gotham through the huge transparent glass window. There was a bandage wrapped around his waist. Just a few hours ago, the same story happened to him again. After the mysterious man defeated Lei Xiaogu, the other party caught him and imposed the most cruel punishment on him. Another broken back broke his spine, and the severe pain caused Bruce to faint again. And when he woke up, he was lying on the hospital bed in Wayne Manor. According to what the loyal butler AFU told him, he appeared at the gate of the manor out of thin air. Master Bruce. Ah Fu brought a late-night snack with a few pieces of fish and milk on top. The old man looked at the bleeding bandage and felt heartache. He frowned and said, "You should lie in bed and rest." Ah Fu recalled the scene a few hours ago. Batman, covered in blood, passed out at the gate of the manor. It was exactly the same as the scene where he was found not long ago. He was even worried that if it happened a few more times, Bruce's mentality might be shaken. Don't be surprised. The fact that it turned into a broken back is of no concern to my young master. Bruce shook his head. Has my blood been checked? Although the spine was broken, miraculously, the shattered spine was not seriously damaged, as if a magical force had repaired the broken bones. This made Bruce suspect that the mysterious person had done something to his body, such as feeding him some magical drugs. Through analysis by the medical department, they found a small amount of the self-healing factor in your blood. That makes sense. Bruce stood up with difficulty, frowning slightly at the pain in his back. The intercom on the table sounded a police report. A horrific kidnapping and robbery had occurred in the country house. AFU, prepare your bat suit. Bruce's eyes gradually became firmer. Now was not the time to rest. There were important things waiting for him to do. He would investigate the mysterious man's matter, but not now. But master. Bruce shook his head. Gotham needs me. Looking up at the moon from the living room on the first floor, you will find that the moon is big and round, just like this face. Okay, let's get down to business. Gino played with the golden card in his hand that only he could see. After earning 1,000 points after beating up Lei Xiaogu, he also earned 3,000 negative points from the big benefactor, Batman. Then, Gino got another talent copy card. The young man glanced at the moon. From the Earth, he thought the bright full moon was very beautiful, but in fact, when he stood outside the Earth and stood on the moon, the object was as ugly as a small lump of briquettes. It's just a pity that Kino didn't find the fallen Transformers or alien base on the moon, otherwise he would have to catch one and give it to the cheap guy to study, and maybe it can promote the advancement of Earth's science and technology for 100 years. Yu sighed and listened to the footsteps behind her. Dr. Harleen was taking Leticia slowly down the stairs of the second floor. Be careful on the steps. Harleen supported the blonde woman who looked like a child. Apart from anything else, the doctors in Gotham are quite responsible. Kino has also noticed Dr. Harleen's performance in the past few days and feels that this woman is a good doctor. Ms. Harleen, please let her drink this bottle of water. Gino took out the transparent bottle from his pocket and threw it to Harleen. This was the amber gold he took out from the wine cellar. Although he didn't know if it would be useful for mental patients, Gino still planned to try it. Leticia is a good mother. During the years when Lionel thought she was possessed by a demon, she took her to various mysterious places in the world to seek help. So, Gino wants to cure her. Gino watched Dr. Harleen half coaxing Leticia to drink the amber gold. However, there was no effect. Leticia still had the same innocent expression, and it seemed that she was not affected by the healing power at all. At most, her cheeks only became rosy. Gino was silent. It seemed that amber gold had little effect on mental patients. The woman blinked, wiped the water stains from the corner of her mouth, then picked up the bald bear in her hand and played with it. Gino sighed, and it was right to think about it. This self-healing ability is only for the body, and wounds on the mind are not so easy to repair. The mind, the soul, any disease that has anything to do with these things is very difficult to deal with. Gino waved his hand and motioned for Harleen to take Leticia and leave. He sat back on the sofa, his expression uncertain. "Hey kid, what are you thinking about?" Lauren came back from wandering around somewhere. The old guy still had lipstick marks on his neck. Ever since Gino robbed the amber gold from the Court of Owls, Lauren had also taken advantage of it. After drinking a few sips of the amber gold, he was relieved. Senescence. Nothing. Gino shook his head. He had no feelings for Lauren, his cheap grandfather, and would not talk to him much. Lauren touched his nose in embarrassment, feeling helpless about Gino's cold attitude. Gino held his chin and thought about the recent events. Lei Xiaogu was beaten to death and returned, and he would not be able to make waves for a while. However, the defeat in this battle greatly damaged Lei Xiaogu's reputation. According to Talia's description, the old guy got angry on the island, and then went to the spring water for retreat, saying that he wanted to regain his strength and fight back to Gotham. This time in Gotham, Lei Xiaogu lost face. In Eastern terms, he had to regain his reputation. This is a complete conflict with Gotham City, and Batman will be busy in the future. Doo-doo. The sound of the phone interrupted Kino's thoughts. The boy picked up the phone and put it to his ear. When he heard the news on the phone, Kino's eyes suddenly turned ugly and gloomy. "What did you say?" An invisible pressure suddenly enveloped the hall. Laurent carefully looked at Gino's cold face and asked with concern, "What happened?" Gino stood up, put on a black jacket, and walked outside without looking back, saying, "Lex was hit by a tornado." "What?" Before Lauren could speak, Gino pushed open the door of the manor. Bang! He just raised his head slightly, and in the next moment, the cement steps under his feet were broken and cracked, with countless small cracks extending out. The terrifying creature held up Gino, and his body turned into a stream of light and flew high into the sky in an instant. The wind and waves caused by it blew into the living room and caused the paper trembled with a squeak, leaving a stunned Lauren on the spot staring blankly at the little black dot that was gradually blurring. "My God, Holy Mary!" Lauren's legs felt weak. He rubbed his eyes desperately, unable to believe what he saw. His cheap grandson can actually fly. Boom. Like a hypersonic cruise missile, like a sharp arrow shot by a god, the god of creation threw the first lightning into the world. A figure flew 10,000 meters in the air at an unimaginable speed. The condensed air was violently broken open at such a speed that a thin sound barrier was created around Gino's body, causing a burst of sound wherever he passed. The flying Kino glanced at the town under the clouds. Soon he saw the shadow of Kansas. Viewed from high above, the Kansas landscape looks like a half-pipe. Found it, Gino thought to himself. While lowering the altitude, it was almost flying against the sea surface. Wherever it passed, the ocean currents divided it, just like Moses dividing the sea. Boom. Leaving the sonic boom behind, he left the ocean and flew into the air at extremely fast speeds, his afterimage passing through the metropolis and bypassing the tall buildings. Soon, the appearance of the small town of Smallville came into view. The town that experienced the baptism of the tornado was as dilapidated and depressed as an abandoned factory after the deindustrialization of the United States. The originally simple and secretive town seemed to have been hit by a storm from the sky. The roadside signboards were broken and many broken tables and chairs were scattered throughout the town. Damaged houses, scrapped cars. Gino watched all this in silence, feeling deeply that America was indeed the favorite place for tornadoes, and the town of Smallville also inherited this. The unique geographical location and air factors make the town known as the hometown of tornadoes, certified by Superman's adoptive father. Seeing the small town that he had been away from for a long time return again, Gino felt a little sad. However, it is still important to visit the cheap man for now. The young man found an unoccupied alley and flew down the alley. He immediately activated his speed and turned into an afterimage and rushed to the hospital. Small town hospital. Because of the tornado, there were injured and sick people everywhere in the town. Some people were blown up by a tornado while driving and suffered concussions, while others had their skin cut with sharp objects and bleeding profusely. Some people were sitting at home when the bathtub came up from the sky, and they broke 2 thighs. It can be said that even drinking cold water made their teeth choke. Looking around, it's no different than entering a refugee camp. The doctors and nurses in the town are almost crazy about their work. There are also many people who are responsible for helping mixed in the crowd. Among them, Gino saw Chloe and Lana, who had dark circles under their eyes and looked haggard. The two of them were helping to transfer the wounded, pushing hospital beds and so on. Gino walked towards the two of them, while helping Lana and Chloe lift the medical box weighing several kilograms. Thanks. Lana and Chloe didn't even look up. This box contained medical supplies urgently allocated from other hospitals. They needed to be unloaded and put into use immediately. You're welcome. A warm and familiar voice sounded above the two of them. Lana glanced up subconsciously, and then she couldn't look away anymore. Her long blonde hair shines like a ray of sunshine under the dim sky, her tall nose, angular features, and her cheerful and sunny smile. Coupled with a tall body and a strong physique, it can only be said that after basking in the sun, Gino is far more handsome than before. Kino. Looking at the sudden appearance of the boy, Lana's face was filled with surprise. Kino. Chloe also looked up, and when she saw Gino, the girl's face immediately turned red. It's been a few weeks since I last saw you. You've become a lot more handsome. It's okay. Gino shrugged and helped the two of them carry the goods. With his joining, the three of them soon finished the work at hand. Lana nudged Chloe gently with her shoulder, signaling the girl to be brave enough to face it. In the beginning, Lana actually liked Gino, but Gino kept Lana at arm's length. Dog licking is very common, but it is rare for women to lick dogs. Stopping losses in time is also a strategy. The girl was helpless, knowing that it was impossible for her and Gino to be together, so she could only retreat and find Clark, who loved her deeply. Now the two were in an ambiguous period and their relationship was quite good. Chloe pursed her lips. Under Lana's encouraging gaze, she was about to walk towards the boy, but saw Gino waving to the two of them. I'll go find Lex first. I'll see you later. Looking at Gino's leaving figure, Chloe had no choice but to swallow back the words she just wanted to say. Chloe muttered, okay, see you later. Gino walked into the hospital and quickly reached the fourth floor of the top floor after avoiding some seriously injured patients. As a country where capital is prevalent, families like Lex naturally have some inconspicuous privileges. For example, the best private medical teams are already on standby. When Gino opened the door and walked into the ward, he saw Lex covering his eyes, and Clark standing next to him with an embarrassed look on his face. And, lying on the hospital bed with a sling bottle hanging on it, it seemed that Lionel was in a coma. The old man's eyes were wrapped in white cloth, as if he had suffered some kind of injury. Clark was the first to see Kino. The two looked at each other, and the atmosphere was dull for a moment. Lex noticed the weirdness of the two of them, smiled, stood up and said, Kino, it was Clark who saved Lionel and me. The originally raised eyebrows relaxed. Gino sighed, while Clark waved his hands shyly, and the big boy shook his head and said, this is what I should do. Let the time go back to an hour ago. Because Lionel sent a honeypot to test Lex, the smart bald man was very angry, so he and his father Lionel had a big fight, which turned from a verbal conflict into a physical conflict. Both are rich men and their fighting skills are both strong, but Lex is young and beats the old master to death with random punches, and chases Lionel all the way from the hall to the outside of the manor. After the two of them fought their way out of the castle hall, a tornado hit the castle. When they reacted, it was too late. The two unlucky guys were swept into the center of the wind tunnel by the tornado. Fortunately, Clark and Lana were walking nearby at the time. Then, the two people who were involved in the tornado and were unconscious were rescued by Clark. Thank you indeed. Gino sighed and stretched out his palm. Oh, it's okay, it's just that I should be the one to thank you. Clark scratched his cheek and clasped Gino's palm with his other hand. Holding their arms together, Clark looked into Gino's eyes. You were right at the time. Kindness should be used in the right place, and you must have the courage to pay the price for kindness. Listening to Clark's words, Gino felt a little emotional that the big boy had grown up a lot after all. The atmosphere was silent for a moment, and then, a pair of big hands gently clasped Gino's shoulders. Clark looked at Gino nervously and said, we are still friends, right? Although he had a fight with Gino, he had to admit when he was wrong and stand upright when he was beaten. Clark still valued his friendship with Gino. Gino sighed. Under Clark's tangled gaze, the boy smiled slightly and patted Clark on the shoulder. Of course, as long as you don't act stupid, we will still be friends. Well, only Pete's Wounded World, achieved. Clark left the ward anyway. After all, he was the only one in the room whose surname was not Luther. It was quite embarrassing to stay here, so he simply ran away. Before leaving, Gino stopped Clark and asked him to find Chloe and Lana and then go to a bar in the town to get together. Friendships are like this. If you talk more and see more, you will naturally have deeper feelings. If you don't talk and see each other, it's no different from strangers. Clark agreed and left the room. After the big boy left, Gino sat down on the sofa on the other side and looked at Lex with a playful look. Why are you in such an embarrassing situation? How are your injuries? Lex sighed and put down his right hand that was covering his eyes. There was a tiny crack on his eyelid, which was being covered with a band-aid. This is for you. Gino threw a small bottle of amber gold to Lex. Found in Gotham. Lex caught the vial. As a rigorous scientist, he naturally knew that this thing looked unusual. He drank the colorless and odorless amber gold in the bottle. After a while, he felt a numbing and tingling sensation on his eyelids. Lex reached out to touch it and found that the previous wound had long since disappeared. It has a certain degree of self-healing effect. Lex gave his own judgment and conclusion, his eyes flickering for a moment. How much of this do you still have? Addicted to scientific research, Lex is eager to get into the underground base of the factory to conduct experiments. There's no rush yet. Gino glanced at Lionel, who was lying quietly on the bed. Although the other party remained motionless, the sound of his slightly rapid breathing betrayed him. Lionel was already awake, and for some unknown reason, he did not make a sound, but was eavesdropping on his conversation with Lex. What did the doctor say about the severity of his injuries? Gino pointed to Lionel lying on the hospital bed. Lex sneered and threw an inspection report to Gino. The hurricane blew out his eyes and he's kind of blind now. Gino raised his eyebrows and chuckled. Wow, sad news, our King Arthur has lost his light. This is not the worst. Lex rubbed his eyebrows and said, our company in the metropolis will also be affected by the news of Lionel's injury, and the stock price may be affected. So I hope you can go to Metropolis and help me look after the company. At the very least, the company's stock price must be stabilized and not collapse. Otherwise, other competitors will be attracted to bargain hunting, which will be a disaster for the company. Lex stood up slowly, walked to the window, and looked at the town after the hurricane. However, there is no need to worry too much. I have a scientific research project here that is progressing smoothly. It won't be long before the situation can be reversed. Quote, the scientific research project Lex is talking about is a kind of phagocyte extracted from the bat monster girl Julie. After research, his scientific researchers found that this kind of cells can be used to eat up excess fat in the human body, thereby achieving the effect of rapid weight loss. To put it simply, it is a true weight loss pill. No matter how fat you are, you can have a healthy figure with just one pill. Hypothetically, if this drug is put on the market, it will definitely arouse the crazy pursuit of many wealthy wives and powerful ladies. Well, it looks like I have to go back to Metropolis. Gino shrugged, not having any objections to returning to Metropolis. I have many childhood friends in the Metropolis, so I won't be bored when I go back. And one more thing. Lex looked at Gino and said, I'm in the laboratory. Lex didn't finish what he said. Let's go out and talk. Gino interrupted Lex. Lex was puzzled, but followed Gino outside the ward. Standing in the corridor, Lex reorganized his words. You know, I have been sending people to collect all kinds of strange items in the town. Not long ago, someone found a strange prismatic object in the mud on the east side of the town. Lex took out a square metal prism from his hand. He stared at the metal and laughed at himself. What's interesting is that I can't tell which category this metal belongs to. It doesn't seem to be something from the earth. Gino stared at the fragments in Lex's hand. Pulling away the prismatic metal fragments, you feel cold but with a strange feeling of heat. This thing. Gino frowned and asked Lex, what do you think it looks like? The great scientist bald Lex was silent for a moment, and then said his answer, it's like the activation key of some kind of equipment. Start key. Gino raised his eyebrows, and what Clark told him not long ago came to mind. Clark has an alien spaceship at home. Perhaps, this thing has something to do with Clark's spaceship. Gino plans to investigate when he has time. Put this thing away, maybe it will be useful in the future. Gino returns the key. Correct. Gino took out a bottle of potion from his pocket again and threw it to Lex. Lex looked at the bottle in his hand, confused. What do you mean? The decision is yours. Gino glanced at the white door of the hospital bed, then at Lex, and after saying these words, he turned around and disappeared around the corner of the corridor. After Gino left, Lex looked at the bottle in his hand in trance. Of course he knew what Gino was thinking. Let yourself decide. So, is this going to be used to restore Lionel's sight? Lex hesitated for a moment. 2 pirate bars. The town that has experienced strong winds is slightly depressed. Basically, every household has suffered some losses, and those who have not suffered any losses will not feel good when they see this apocalyptic disaster-like town. Therefore, the bars in the town were somewhat overcrowded for a while. Through the crowded crowd, people who knew the tall young man moved out of the way. Gino quickly found the 3 Clarks at the small table in the corner. Kino, this way. Clark smiled and waved, indicating that he was over here. Today is a really bad day. Genuo opened the chair and leaned on it. After not seeing each other for a while, Gino was already half a head taller than Clark. At the wine table at this moment, Chloe was bored, shaking the coffee with a spoon. Lana took the initiative to stir up the topic. Kino, is Gotham really as scary as what is said on TV? Thanks to the publicity of the American media, Gotham City has become synonymous with monsters and monsters in the eyes of other American people. But strictly speaking, the media is right, Gotham is such an evil city. Clark on the side also pricked up his ears. Adolescent boys are always interested in things like criminal firearms and crime because it seems cool. How to say it, I'm not exaggerating, but I heard an interesting thing there. Gino looked at Clark deeply, and then told the 3 people about Batman. After finishing speaking, Gino asked the 3 people a sole question. Do you think this masked man did the right thing? I think. Lana pursed her lips and said with a serious face, he is a hero. Although his actions are also breaking the law, with the collapse of Gotham City's laws, only the logic of using violence to fight violence can curb crime. Quote. Chloe stopped spinning the coffee, and the girl also gave her own thoughts. The masked hero's approach will undoubtedly bring more people who want to change the city like him to join, and it can be inspiring. In the eyes of the 2 women, what Batman did was cool and great. After all, not everyone has the courage to be prepared to fight against the evil of an entire city. Clark, what do you think? Lana asked dissatisfiedly when she saw Clark's dazed expression. Me, I think it's very, very cool. Clark hesitated. In fact, he also had the idea of using these powers to change the world and punish evil and promote good, just like the masked swordsman in Western stories. However, the boy's dream was suppressed by his adoptive parents before he even started, and now Clark can only envy the masked man. By the way, Gino. Seeing the topic open, Lana glanced at Chloe, planning to help her friend with a wave of assists. Are you free tomorrow? I'm going to have a horse race at my house. Lana's aunt is also a well-known wealthy person in the town. The family runs a horse racing breeding base with considerable profits. Pity. Gino shrugged, glanced at Lana and said, I'm going back to the metropolis in a while. My father was injured and fell into a coma. Someone has to guard the company headquarters, so he won't be able to stay long this time. Listening to Gino's words, a flash of helplessness flashed in Lana's eyes. Looking at the distraught Chloe, she could only feel regret in her heart. She had tried her best, but Gino really didn't have time. Let's get together next time when we have time. Gino threw a stack of Franklins to the waiter, and he invited the dinner party. Looking at the young man's leaving figure, Chloe's eyes turned red for some reason. Shall I go outside for a walk? Clark noticed that the atmosphere was subtle, and he was somewhat aware of Chloe's feelings for Gino. After Clark left, Chloe couldn't bear the depression in her heart anymore and couldn't help crying on the table. Having a crush on someone is so painful. Metropolis. It is one of the top 3 cities in the United States in terms of total GDP, attracting elite talents from all over the world. Compared with Gotham's filth and chaos, Metropolis can be separated from Gotham City by an Amazon trench in terms of sanitation and security. And located in the residential area on the east side of the metropolis, a shelf is filled with all kinds of strange and weird items. There are shriveled monkey paws, unknown twisted tentacles, and gray crucibles, all placed on the shelves. Scattered books and papers littered the table. Ah ha ha. A brisk singing sound came from the bathroom not far away. Gotcha. As the door opened, a pair of straight, round, long legs stepped towards the bath towel. Water droplets slid down the smooth skin and wet the mahogany floor. Wipe your cheeks with a clean white bath towel and rub your long hair. The owner of the long legs came to the mirror. Under the high nose bridge is a delicate and attractive moist red lip, and the white dice earrings are gently swaying under the smart little ears. A pair of beautiful big eyes seemed to contain magnificent stars, and those purple eyes seemed to come from an extraordinary place, reflecting the flawless and straight figure in the mirror. The girl put her hands on her hips and pouted. Magician Zatanna, prepare to attack. She put up a small amount of capital, and then exhaled like a deflated rubber ball. Put on a light blue woolen sweater. The weather has entered autumn and you will catch a cold if you don't pay attention. Then put on black stockings and leggings. Finally, put on the most common magic circle used by circus performers. Hat. A cute girl who is 3 points mysterious and 6 points playful is standing in front of the mirror. The black high-heeled shoes made a clicking sound on the floor. The girl sat back at the table and picked up an obscure magic book to study carefully. Zatanna Zatara, the only daughter of a magical family, has been working hard to find her father's whereabouts since she witnessed her father disappearing when she was a child. So hard. Zatanna was chanting the convoluted magic spell, feeling a little distracted for a moment, her big purple eyes scanning the photo frame on the table. Inside is a photo of a blonde boy and a black-haired girl. In the photo, the girl is smiling happily and stroking the boy's neck with her hands. I don't know what Mr. Gino is doing. Zatanna leaned back in her chair and sighed. But at this moment, there was a knock on the door. It's so late, who is it? Zatanna glanced at the alarm clock on the table. It was already 12 o'clock in the morning. Who would come to visit so late? Menchie Cave. The girl whispered softly, and as her words fell, the originally solid wooden door suddenly became illusory, as if it had disappeared from the sky. Zatanna saw the figure standing outside the door. He wears a tall body with a black windbreaker, carrying a box of pure beer in his hand, and his beautiful long blonde hair is caressed by the wind. Kino. Zatanna pushed the door open almost at extremely fast speed, her purple eyes full of surprise, her little hands rubbed, and a silly smile appeared on her face. Why are you here? I remember, aren't you in Gotham City? Gino threw the beer in his hand to the girl familiarly, walked into the room and took off his windbreaker. Something happened at home. Huh, is that okay? Fine. Gino sat on the chair and motioned to Zatanna to come drink with him. The two first met back in the year when they were copying Clark. When her family discovered something was wrong with her, Leticia took Gino to search for many mysterious masters. Among them is Zatanna's father, Giovanni Zatara. Giovanni is a powerful magician and often takes on business in exorcising demons and evil spirits. It was at that time that Gino became familiar with Zatanna, and the two became friends and had a very good relationship. Pa! The wine glasses collided in his mouth. Zatanna let out a satisfied sigh as the cold wine entered her stomach. Uncle Giovanni is still missing. Gino poured the girl another glass. Not found. A trace of sadness flashed in Zatanna's eyes. His father disappeared 6 years ago when he was 13. In the past few years, apart from running the exorcism business and magic troupe left by her father, Zatanna has spent the rest of her time searching for the truth about Giovanni's disappearance. A powerful magician could disappear without a trace. This incident has always made the girl sleepless. The atmosphere between the two was somewhat silent for a while. Ding dong. Another ringing sound interrupted the silence. I'll open the door. Zatanna put down her wine glass and walked towards the door with a swaying waist. Click. The door opened, and a middle-aged blonde woman was standing outside the house with a frightened expression. Her pale lips and frightened eyes were slightly frightening in the dark night. She said in a hoarse voice, "Excuse me, this is Zatanna's mysterious affairs." Where? Da da da. The hands of the old clock beat and made a crisp sound. Oh, thank you. Maya, the woman who first appeared at the door, had a tired look on her face and barely managed a smile to take the coffee handed by Zatanna. She held the coffee in her hands, sank into the chair, and clutched the coffee cup with both hands, hoping to use the warmth of the cup wall to dispel the fear in her heart. Tell me about it. Zatanna sat back at her desk. As a magician, she naturally has to deal with the mysterious things in this world. God, angels, Satan, devils, Barabara, these high-latitude creatures seem to use the earth as a dual ground. A place where they wrestle with each other and have been fighting for thousands of years. The battle between demons and angels has naturally given rise to the profession of exorcists. Zatanna is not considered a rich woman. Although she runs a circus, the rapid development of the internet has long made children less interested in the circus. The exorcist industry is very profitable. It's okay if you don't open it. Once you open it, you can make money for a month, but there is also the risk of being killed by the devil at any time and going to heaven. It can be said to be high risk and high reward. Not far away, Gino was also sitting on the sofa behind the girl, closing his eyes and relaxing. He was feeling sleepy after flying all the way from Kansas to Metropolis, so he decided to take a nap for a while. As such that, the woman hesitated for a moment and said, my daughter, something was wrong a week ago. A look of panic flashed in her eyes, and her pupils shrank slightly with fear. It started a week ago. The woman began to tell her what happened last week. She and her husband run a department store with considerable profits, and they have a very cute daughter. In order to give the girl the best education, the couple spent a lot of money to send her to a top high school private school in a metropolitan area. Everything was normal in the first few years, until the girl's senior year, 4 years of high school in the United States. A group of thrill-seeking boys and girls formed a party and planned to explore a nearby abandoned monastery, and the couple's daughter Sarah, nature is among them. This group of bold young men and women set out in the early morning. The dark night and the gloomy atmosphere of the monastery are enough to make people think wildly and secrete a sense of fear. When Sarah came back it was midnight and my husband William and I scolded her hard and she appeared very tired. At first, I just thought it was a boring high school game. Until 3 days ago, the woman's eyes flashed with an emotion called fear, and her hand holding the coffee cup trembled slightly. The woman's thoughts were drawn back to the night 3 days ago. Most people in the United States believe in Jesus. The woman's family is also a typical Christian. Sarah, you look bad. At the dinner table, the family after praying tasted the spaghetti mixed with diced beef on the dinner table. William took out a few tissues and wiped the foam from the corners of his mouth, looking at the girl across the table with a worried expression. At the age of youth and beauty, Sarah had long golden hair inherited from her mother, but her gray complexion destroyed this beauty. Sarah sat listlessly on the chair, unconsciously stirring the noodles on the plate with the fork in her hand, and then put down the fork. I have no appetite. Sarah walked up to the room on the second floor with a stooped body. Her curved back looked like something was pressing on her, and every step was extremely difficult. William and his wife didn't think much about it, they just felt that their daughter might have reached puberty and was going through some unnecessary moaning between men and women. Until they go to bed, until the time reaches the early hours of the morning. Maya was awakened by a strange sound. Eat, eat, eat. It was like something was scratching the door with its claws. The sharp voice made Maya panic. William, wake up. She gently patted her husband's cheek, and the sleepy William slowly opened his eyes. Maya looked solemn. Did you hear anything? Sound. William pricked up his ears. Eat, eat, eat. I heard it. William rubbed his eyes and yawned. Maybe it's termites or something. Tomorrow I'll get a pest control company to come and check the house. Now go to sleep. William fell into a deep sleep, but his wife Maya could not. The sound echoed in my ears like a maggot attached to the bone. And, getting closer. Eat, eat, eat. William. Maya couldn't bear it anymore, and she chose to wake her husband to explain the situation. We have to go see it. Okay, calm down, honey. William sighed. He was wearing pajamas, got out of bed, and pulled a revolver from the nightstand. The couple walked toward the door one after another. Timid Maya hides behind her husband. They pushed open the door. Then, Father, Mother, Sarah's voice sounded above their heads. They subconsciously looked up, and then. The blonde girl was holding a wooden sculpture of Jesus in her hand. Her white teeth kept chewing on the head of the statue. The wooden thorns in the broken wooden sculpture pierced the girl's mouth, but even if the blood flowed, it could not stop the girl. Her voice gradually became distorted and low, and then a man's voice sounded from Sarah's throat. This statue smells so good. She's possessed. The hot coffee steam hits the woman's face, awakening her thoughts. When she came to her senses, Zatanna on the other side of the table said with a serious face. Since God created the world, Adam and Eve spread their branches, and humans have multiplied. Demons, creatures from hell, have been coveting the human world. Under the leadership of Satan, they have been trying to occupy the human world and turn the human world into their territory. It is said that this is because God once had a bet with Lucifer, the demon king of hell. Comparing the number of human souls ascending to heaven or falling into hell, whichever side has more power will control the world. Therefore, under the leadership of Lucifer, the demons have been wandering around the world tirelessly, spreading the 7 deadly sins and leading people to fall. Of course, Zatanna was not interested in these blabbering things. She looked at the woman. What happened next? After that, she became more and more weird. She hated the day and sunshine, liked the night, and even started eating raw beef and insulting God. Maya covered her cheeks as if collapsed, and yesterday, she climbed up the ceiling of her home like a gecko. If the weird behavior in the past few days can be explained by mental illness or epilepsy, then the fact of climbing a wall with bare hands and transforming into a small Spider-Man is completely anti-human. It's not like Maya didn't think about going to see a doctor, but science couldn't explain this weird thing. She could only classify it as a mental illness. She prescribed some sedatives and sent the couple away. Then how is she doing now? Zatanna put her chin on her hands and stared at the woman with a serious face. Sometimes, the devil in hell will also assign demons to do some terrible bad things to create chaos and corruption. The woman hesitated and said, her husband and I tied her limbs with cloth strips, gagged her mouth and locked her up in the innermost attic. My husband is looking after her now. I really can't help it, I can't watch her die. Zatanna nodded. I can understand your mood. A firm look flashed in the girl's eyes. She picked up a cross on the table and then pressed down the non-existent detective hat like a detective in a TV series. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Maya stood up with Zatanna. Before leaving, she glanced at Kino subconsciously and asked, won't he follow you? Zatanna felt that women might think that having one more person would give them more strength, and the aura exuding from this young man gave people a sense of strength and reliability. So are you going? Zatanna thought for a moment, walked towards Kino with her eyes closed, stretched out her little hands and pinched both sides of Kino's nose. Let go. Awakened by the girl, Gino had no choice but to open the girl's mischievous little hand. He was about to refuse, but thinking about the legendary hell and demons, he became interested for a while. So you want to go? Zatanna raised her eyebrows. She could see what Gino was thinking. Okay, I'll go with you. Gino also stood up and took off his windbreaker from the hanger. Maya quickly thanked her and led the two of them out of the office. Take my car. The woman's car was a blue sedan. The two were sitting in her car. The metropolis late at night is full of traffic. After driving for dozens of minutes, the three finally arrived at Maya's house. A villa area located on the west side of the metropolis. The people living nearby basically belong to the middle-class talents of free America. Not particularly rich, but not poor either. Follow me. Maya took the keys out of her bag, and her breathing became faster the closer she got to the door. Seems very nervous. Gotcha. The door opens. This is a very cozy-looking cabin. Tables, chairs, sofas, TVs, refrigerators, ovens, everything. However, it seemed that Sarah was possessed by a demon. The curtains in the house were closed and the lights were not turned on, making the room look particularly gloomy. From time to time, the strange movements on the second floor echoed in my ears, adding a layer of terror to the atmosphere. She's up there. Maya pointed to the second floor above her head in horror. Let's go take a look. As the daughter of a great wizard, Zatanna's magic is not weak. Body armor. The girl spoke softly, and as her words fell, her eyes glowed purple. Beside him, Gino also found that he was covered with a solid wall of air that was invisible and intangible. This is Zatanna's unique reverse speaking magic, which allows her to cast magic by reciting words backwards. Let's go. Zatanna clenched her fists and walked cautiously toward the second floor. As a friend, she naturally knows about Gino's strength. The two walked up the creaking stairs to the second floor. There was a strange sound coming from the innermost room. Click, click, click. It was like some kind of wild animal chewing something. Gino turned his head and looked behind him, and found that the middle-aged woman named Maya had not followed. Don't you think it's strange? Gino patted Zatanna's shoulder, signaling the girl to stop. What's the meaning? Gino smiled and seemed to point out. Do you still remember what the woman said to us in the office? Huh. Zatanna tilted her head, looking like she didn't quite understand. She said her husband was looking after Sarah, the woman's daughter. Gino yawned and glanced across the room. His godlike ability allowed him to easily see through the surface and directly point to matter. Ignoring the pink cartoon underwear the girl was wearing, she looked directly at the door. I saw a figure lying on a pot-bellied corpse in a dimly lit room. The floor was also soaked in blood, looking extremely scarlet and strange. The corpse's wide eyes and the kitchen knife stuck in its chest all proved that this matter was not simple, because the girl's wrists showed no traces of cloth binding at all. In that room, the demon was eating the body of the male owner of the room, but there were no signs of restraint on her wrists and ankles. She's lying. Zatanna suddenly woke up. She turned her head and saw Maya walking towards the two of them holding an M1896 shotgun on the stairs behind her. Gotcha. The shotgun is loaded and the gun is aimed. The woman no longer tried to hide it, her pale face was full of madness. You two, get in right away. She tightened her grip on the gun handle and pointed the gun at Kino. Zatanna was a little angry and stared at the woman angrily, as if flames would burst out of her purple eyes in the next second. Why are you doing this? Why do you do this? The woman sneered. Because my daughter needs nutrition. Her eyes were shining with a strange red color, and Zatanna pursed her lips. Gino, this woman must have been bewitched by the devil. Just like the exorcist has holy water, crosses and American III, demons also have evil magic, powerful power and the ability to confuse people. Gino shrugged, noncommittal, his handsome face full of mockery. Get in quickly. Maya raised the barrel of the gun, and the chamber was loaded with life-threatening bullets. At the same time, the wooden door behind the two people also opened. Bang! Like an angry person slamming the door, a gust of cold wind blew through the corridor, followed by a blonde girl wearing a thin nightgown with a blue face. A strange blood-red light shimmered around her. She slowly raised her head and exposed her mouth full of sharp teeth to Gino and Zatanna. A low and hoarse voice echoed in the corridor. A magician and a strong man, you must taste delicious. Now, walk over there. Maya's finger fell on the trigger, staring at the two men full of threats. However, the boy at the other end of the corridor seemed not to hear it. Gino watched with interest as the demon possessing the girl was controlling the body and moving towards this side. Kino. Zatanna clenched her fists. I'm going to deal with that demon, you hold Maya back. Why bother? Gino sneered. The next moment, a dazzling red light illuminated the entire corridor. Buzz. Thousands of degrees of heat, like lava-like heat vision, roared out from the young man's eyes, roaring violently and twisting the air, and shot towards the woman holding the gun. I want them to die, and they have to die now. Buzz. The scorching, terrifying heat vision focused on his eyes, and the extremely high temperature, which was as high as the surface temperature of the sun, caused the air to heat up and distort. No reservations, full release. They are like sharp arrows thrown by the sun towards the earth. Wherever they pass, the floor melts and flies ash, revealing the living room scene on the first floor. Melting brick walls, tearing tables to pieces, turning everything in its path into ash, bombarding women with indomitable and powerful energy. The deadly firearms invented by humans for massacre melted into a pool of scorched and smelly solution in an instant. Maya stared blankly as the laser fell on her at lightning speed. There were no screams or wails, and no flesh and blood was torn apart. The terrifying temperature melted the woman's body at the moment of contact, burning the blood and skin, and burning the bones. The heat vision gradually weakened, and Gino extinguished the burning energy in his eyes. At this moment, the corridor that was originally several meters long was divided into two, and the broken wooden board in the middle of the corridor was burning with sporadic flames. On the blackened wall, a charred corpse with a wide mouth stood quietly in front of the stairs. A breeze blew by, and the scorched corpse that was originally standing shattered like a dandelion blown by the wind. Wow, residues as fine as coal and stones dispersed in the wind. This horrific scene not only shocked Zatanna, but also made the girl possessed by the demon on the other side of the corridor open her mouth in shock. How is this possible? Zatanna looked at the messy house, and the scorching energy exploded just now. She could swear that if it were her, she might need to borrow the power of the latitude demons to do it. The girl took a deep look at Gino, who had a calm face. It seemed that everything he had just done was easy for him, and he could not see any burden. Zatanna was in a daze for a while. She hadn't seen him for several months, and the changes in Gino even gave her an unreal feeling. Then, it's your turn next. Gino slowly turned around and his eyes fell on the girl possessed by the devil. He couldn't help but think of a joke and said casually, Zatanna, it's a good thing that there is no priest in this family, and the object possessed by the devil is not a little boy. Listening to Gino's cold joke, Zatanna rolled her eyes helplessly. The story between the priest and the little boy is also very popular in the West. However, there was still business to be done now, and Zatanna had no intention of chatting with Gino. The girl stared at the possessed Sarah, and slowly raised her hands to prepare to release the magic spell. We should catch it, this demon knows a lot. Before she finished speaking, Zatanna felt a strong wind blowing across her cheeks. Snapped. Gino stood in front of the devil in an instant. Before the demon could react, what it responded to was an iron arm made of cast steel that suddenly grabbed its neck and slammed it into the wall. Wow! The concrete wall shattered, and the demon possessing Sarah struggled wildly but could not break free. As if realizing his situation, the demon stopped struggling, and a twisted smile appeared on his pale face. The demon controlled this body and slowly spoke. Aren't you afraid that I will kill this girl? Are you threatening me? Gino sneered. Maybe you don't know who I am. But I can tell you about it. Except for my family and friends, I don't care about anyone else. So if you want to threaten me with this girl's life, my answer is to advise you to give up this idea as soon as possible, because I don't care about the life or death of strangers at all. Gino's words instantly caused the demon's CPU to crash. It took a breath of cold air and even doubted who was the devil. It swallowed in disbelief, stared at the young man's handsome face, and asked tentatively, aren't you an exorcist? Have you ever seen an exorcist using his fists? The devil is silent. It has to admit that the other party is right. Most exorcists can only live a decent life, but they will never be as well-groomed and expensive as Gino. If it were normal, the devil would only regard him as a fool. The dead rich second generation. Moreover, exorcists basically rely on magic to survive and fight. Who the hell is a magician who can shoot lasers from his eyes and be so powerful that he can fight demons at close range? So, as Gino said, he is indeed not an exorcist. Surge of energy demon. Seeing that Gino was controlling the demon, Zatanna didn't say much harshly. The girl activated her reverse magic, and dozens of purple magical threads lit up on her wrists, binding the demon's limbs. Gino also let go of the devil. Plop! Losing the support of her center of gravity, Sarah fell to the floor in embarrassment, her long blonde hair messy covering her cheeks. Purple magical threads bound the girl tightly. The clothes tightened by silk threads outline a little bit of fat, making her figure quite hot. Let's talk. Zatanna stared down at the demon. Haha, exorcist, go to hell, in the name of Satan, I won't tell you anything. The demon-possessed Sarah held her neck high, looking like she would rather die than surrender. Tisk. Looking at this scene, Zatanna also felt a little troubled. For demons, being expelled and killed by an exorcist only represents the death of their physical bodies, and their essential souls will return to hell at the moment of death. And this is also the reason why this demon speaks so forcefully. Zatanna. Looking at the arrogant demon, Gino rubbed his chin and said, I remember, don't you exorcists also have a ritual that allows the redeemed to ascend to heaven? Listening to Gino's words, the atmosphere fell into silence for a moment. Zatanna was originally worried about how to pry open the devil's mouth. After receiving Gino's reminder, the girl clapped her hands in surprise. Yeah, why didn't I think of that? Gino paid attention to the devil's face. Sure enough, after hearing Gino's idea, the demon's already pale cheek showed a look of fear for a moment. Are you crazy? It looked at the handsome young man and even doubted its own identity for a moment. Can a person come up with such a vicious idea? As we all know, heaven, what is that place? The abode of God, his old man. What's inside the residence? Apart from those who go to heaven, there is only one thing left that the devils are jealous of: angels. Throwing a demon into a heaven full of angels is like throwing a little white rabbit into a pack of hungry wolves. It is light to break bones and raise ashes, and it may even trigger another struggle between heaven and hell. Should I say it or not say it? Without saying much, the Geno man motioned to Zatanna to take out the cross and Bible, planning to give the little devil a one-day trip to heaven on the spot. I say, don't let me go to heaven, Sarah cried sadly. For ordinary people, going to heaven is a good thing, but for demons, it is tantamount to murder. Being kicked to death by angels in heaven is a real death, and you can't even go back to your hometown of hell. Inside the house, which is almost turned into ruins, the demon possessing Sarah leaned against the wall with a defeated look on her face. Geno pointed at Zatanna beside him with an expressionless face. She asks, "You answer." The devil nodded expressionlessly. "I won't refuse. Although it is working for the Supreme Being, the price of betrayal will be severe. But it's like being presented with two bad options, just pick the one that's not the worst. Go to heaven and be torn to pieces by those crazy angels, or betray the boss and suffer constant torture in hell." He chose the latter. "I found that demonic activities have been very active recently. What's your plot?" Zatanna held her chin, stared at the demon with a serious face, and took out a crystal ball from her pocket. "You'd better not lie. This magic crystal can measure lies." The demon was silent, but as Geno slowly took out the cross, it closed its eyes and said with difficulty, "Yes, Lord Mammon wants us to invade the human world and attract the attention of the exorcists. I don't know anything else." The devil had a flattering smile on his face. "I am just a small character in hell, and Lord Mammon only told me this." "Who is Mammon?" Geno looked at Zatanna. He didn't believe in God, and he didn't bother to understand the people between hell and heaven. Zatanna's expression was not as relaxed as Geno's. She hesitated and said, "Mammon is one of Lucifer's many descendants." Lucifer, the first fallen one. Geno recalled some religious books in his mind. It is said that after God created mankind, Lucifer led a group of angel brothers to launch a war against God because he was dissatisfied with God's preference for mankind. The result is also obvious. Laodang slapped Lucifer out of heaven, and created a dimension called hell, under the human world, and exiled Lucifer here. However, just looking at these stories, Geno had a strange feeling. He felt that God should be using Lucifer to complete some plans, and Lucifer. Geno felt that the other party might know, or maybe he didn't. But these have little to do with him. Geno knows the purpose of this trip, to find a powerful magician to obtain the other person's talent. If you can't get God's wool, then maybe Lucifer, the former son of the morning star, the first light of the world, is also a good choice. Geno came back to his senses, and Zatanna was also thinking hard at this moment. She wanted to figure out what Mammon wanted to do, but she had no clue. There is too little known information to support the logic of reasoning. For a while, the situation reached a deadlock. If you can't deduce the result, just let it go. Geno rubbed the girl's long hair. Zatanna came back to her senses and nodded in agreement. "You're right. If I don't think about it anymore, my hair will fall out again." She sighed and ran her hands through her hair. Except for the principled issue of finding her missing father, Zatanna basically adheres to the character of taking care of other issues if she can, and letting them go if she can't. Zatanna felt much more relaxed, no longer thinking about Mammon. The girl tilted her head, focused her gaze on Sarah, who was possessed by the demon, and asked, "What should I do about this guy?" Geno glanced at Sarah indifferently, his eyes full of calmness. "Let's do it." A slight smile appeared on the girl's lips, and then she clasped her hands together to control the seal. Holy chants sounded in the corridor. Yes, from the beginning, Geno had no intention of letting this man-eating demon go. Although he felt that he was not a good person, it was undoubtedly ridiculous to pay attention to credibility and morality when facing a demon, not to mention the risk that the demon would go back to hell to complain. And, in the words of my ancestors in previous lives, that is, a dead devil is a good devil. May he have mercy on you and forgive your sins. Forgive you and let you return to heaven. Listening to the holy voice in her ears, and the gate of heaven gradually appearing in her eyes, the demon hidden in Sarah opened her mouth and let out a sharp cry. "You demons!" It knows that it has been deceived. Human beings don't respect credit or martial ethics. Buzz. In invisible latitudes, the divine light from heaven that only demons can see slowly falls down, covering it. At the last moment when the light shrouded it, the devil gritted his teeth and looked deeply at Gino for the last time, and the only response he received was a raised middle finger. The devil swore, with its hundreds of years of experience as a demon, that it had never seen such a cruel, cunning, despicable and shameless human being. Gino smiled and shook his middle finger. Have a good trip. When you get to heaven, don't forget to say hello to God for me. I also want to give you a message. When Lionel dies, please let him go to hell. Wow. The body bound by the rope continued to twitch, and a cold atmosphere enveloped the dilapidated hut. As the demon retreated, the originally pale cheeks became rosy. The cold atmosphere before dissipated. Sarah slowly opened her eyes. Her vision was a little blurry. She rubbed her eyes in the familiar corridor of her home. She felt as if she had had a terrible nightmare. In the dream, she did many terrible things. Her father's remains were eaten by her, and her mother was there. Controlled by her whisper. Rubbing his eye sockets, his vision gradually became clearer. Sarah saw. I saw that the warm corridor in my memory was broken into pieces as if it was split into two by a giant god, and the house at home was in a mess. A pair of strange men and women were standing in front of him, but the woman was looking at him with pity. Zatanna was a little hesitant. She didn't know what words she should use to explain what happened to the girl. Since her father disappeared, Zatanna didn't like to experience life and death. We are exorcists, Gino said. Well, strictly speaking, physical exorcism using fists and force to make demons surrender is also considered exorcism. Oh, by the way, there is one more thing I want to tell you. Your mother is gone. Gino shrugged and told Zatanna the truth. Kino. Zatanna glared at the boy, and Gino shrugged. Lies cannot hide the truth, and the long-term pain is worse than the short-term pain. Upon hearing the news, the girl's face froze. The news was like a heavy hammer hitting her heart, leaving her brain blank and confused. She doesn't know what she should do. The air is filled with the faint smell of sulfur mixed with the smell of burnt ash, which together with the girl's dull eyes form a sad and beautiful picture. It's all my fault, it's all my fault. She came back to her senses and howled like a collapse. If I hadn't broken into that monastery, none of this would have happened. Zatanna glared at Gino, and the boy pointed outside the house. The sound of roaring police sirens and fire engines sounded in his ears. He said, "We have to go." Chapter 111. Too bad luck. Metropolitan Residential Street Crosswalk. The electric lamps erected on both sides of the road late at night emitted a soft gleam and attached to the young men and women. Zatanna tightened the white shorts around her body, regretting that she had worn so little. From time to time, police cars and fire trucks whizzed by. Zatanna sighed. Fortunately, I used a confusion spell on the girl before she woke up, so she couldn't remember our appearance. Choose wisely. Gino rubbed his neck with one hand and his eyes flickered. What are you going to do next? Zatanna rolled her eyes. How? Of course I go home and sleep. Not to mention that the trip was in vain and a lot of my magic power was wasted. Like other magicians, Zatanna doesn't like to meddle in other people's business, especially when it comes to messy things like the children of hell. To use a folk saying from the country where the sky falls, there is a tall person to hold it up. There are so many powerful people in the magic world, and Zatanna doesn't feel like she has to be the one. Zizi. The light flickered and the electricity groaned. The street lights overhead seemed to be flickering as if disturbed by some strange magnetic field, and the light was as dazzling as the flashlights in a ballroom. It seems to have reached some kind of critical point. Bang! There was a loud noise, and the lampshades in the 2 rows from the front to the back were shattered. A vast and dense curtain of darkness instantly enveloped the street. Something's wrong. As an expert in magic, Zatanna noticed the abnormality immediately. The girl's originally gentle eyebrows raised together and her face turned ugly. We are being targeted. Buzz. There were dense and frequent whistling sounds from all directions, which seemed to be the flapping wings of thousands of mosquitoes. Gino narrowed his eyes slightly and looked through the pitch-black night. Thousands of green flies were waving their wings and whizzing towards the 2 of them. Sparkling bright. Zatanna made a mouth seal with her hands. Purple magic energy surged, and in the next moment, blazing white light illuminated the entire street, hiding the figure in the darkness. Thousands of flies were flying, they intertwined and condensed with each other, and then turned into a terrifying humanoid creature. This squirming humanoid shape composed of countless flies outlines the cheek of a demon. It roars at Gino and Zatanna. Magic, you are not allowed to participate in this matter. Now, you're going to pay the price. After finishing speaking, the insect human form suddenly exploded, and countless flapping insects opened their tiny mouthparts, and a green and unknown liquid flowed in the mouthparts. Seeing the demon controlling the swarm of insects roaring towards the two of them, Zatanna looked ugly. She raised her palms to outline an invisible magic shield and explained to Gino, this thing is the demon under Beelzebub. They can control insects such as flies on the earth, and attach the poison in their bodies to the flies and insects. It only takes one bite to kill a strong man. The huge and ugly insect swarm roared towards the two of them like a tornado of insects. The moment the insect army was about to touch the two of them, a blazing white magic light shield lit up in front of Zatanna. Bang bang bang. Countless bugs slammed into the magic energy shield constructed by magic. Their thin and weak bodies were shattered and exploded. The colorful insect internal organs hit the shield like a rain of insects. A thick layer of disgusting green filth had accumulated. Zatanna struggled to resist, raising her hands to control the light shield to resist, but the insect swarm seemed endless and never stopped, constantly attacking the white light shield. Gino looked at the flickering light shield and Zatanna's troubled expression. It seems that the other party can't hold on much longer. Zatanna. Gino took a step forward and patted the girl on the shoulder. Remove the light shield. You sure? Zatanna gritted her teeth and struggled to hold on. I know that your eyes are very capable of emitting heat vision, but there are too many insects here, almost occupying the entire street. And if any bug bites us, it will kill us immediately. The boy smiled, looked seriously into the girl's eyes and said, of course, I'm sure. Believe me. All right. Zatanna gritted her teeth and put down her palm. The next moment, the unimpeded swarm of insects roared and roared towards Gino and Zatanna with a stinky wind. The demon hidden in one of the thousands of insect swarms had a mocking smile on its face. It seemed to have seen the tragic deaths of the two exorcists. It saw the tall male slowly step forward. It saw the guy's blue eyes light up blue. Buzz. A grand blue light suddenly bloomed, with the ultimate cold current and air conditioning enveloping the blue beam to illuminate the entire street. The street lamps, roads, and even the insects flying in the air were all frozen for the moment when the frozen beam of light swept across them, and then they were wrapped in the crystal clear ice. Thousands of miles are frozen, and everything is frozen. Zatanna didn't know when her jaw dropped. The girl's open mouth was letting out steamy white mist. The scene before me was like a dream. The frozen concrete roadside is shining with crystal luster like an ice field in a fairy tale. It matches the stars in the sky above and outlines a beautiful picture together with the young man standing on the solid ice. However, the night wind brought the air conditioning to hit her body, causing Zatanna to sneeze. She lowered her eyes and glanced at Gino, feeling mixed. She found that she could not understand her playmate more and more. It seemed that the other person was a huge mystery and no one could get into his heart. Gino looked at a large pile of flies frozen into ice. The girl was a little dissatisfied that the devil had destroyed this beauty, and a flash of anger flashed in Zatanna's beautiful eyes. These demons, which one is the true body? Gino closed his eyes and opened them again, hiding the dazzling blue light. Let me look for it. Zatanna waved her little hand to cast magic. A ray of purple light flew out from the palm of his hand, circled in the icy cold air, and then burrowed into one of the thousands of insects. This is it. Zatanna pointed at the fly marked by the magic thread. His eyes caught the demon through the ice. This fly is much larger than other flies. More importantly, this fly's compound eyes are purple-red, which makes it look unusual. Find a bottle. Gino stretched out his hand to hold the ice cube. The solid and cold ice was easily broken by fingers. Gino's right hand was like a sharp icebreaker, cutting around the frozen fly demon, and soon he held the ice cube with the demon in his hand. Zatanna got the water cup, Gino threw it into the bottle, and then Zatanna cast the confinement and seal magic. Zatanna shook the glass in her hand and looked at the flies on the mouth of the bottle with a melancholy expression. We have been targeted by Mammon's subordinates. These demons will not let us go easily. Don't worry. Gino stared at his fingers, holding a golden card in his hand. Tell me, if I kill Mammon, will Lucifer come to the door? Since you can't get God's wool, it would be good to copy Lucifer's power that can challenge God. Are you crazy? Zatanna was in disbelief. Gino chuckled and looked into the girl's eyes. No, I'm serious. The living room on the first floor of Zatanna's mystery agency. The melting ice water almost drowned Maiev. Who is Maiev? Of course it's the demon that possessed the fly from before. In the glass bottle at this moment. The thin wings were wet with ice water, and the body was equally wet. The fly demon was locked in a narrow glass, surrounded by energy screens emitting purple light. Dang dang. Gino leaned down and tapped the glass with his finger. But this sound sounded to Maiev like countless suonas blasting in her ears, and the huge sound made Maiev wail. The fly staggered like a scholar, propped up on its two hind legs and shouted, raising its green head and making a sharp voice. The great Lord Mammon will lead us to seize the human world, and I will bite it myself when the time comes. Take your head off. Gino was a little surprised that this demon was so rampant, but this surprised Gino even more. This demon might know a lot of inside stories. Tisk, you don't understand the situation clearly. The young man smiled, suppressed the anger in his heart, and then took out an insect-repellent mosquito coil from the corner. I'll give you one last chance to tell you all the information you know. Impossible. The fly demon was very tough, but Gino was also ruthless. Without saying a word, he lit the mosquito coils on fire and stuffed them into a glass bottle. Cough cough cough. A rich and mixed smell slowly spread out of the bottle, and the deadly smell made the flies scream sadly. But what's even more unfortunate is that although it possesses the fly, the demon's soul is far more powerful than the fly. In other words, ordinary incense will only cause pain to the demon but cannot kill it. After finishing all this, Gino capped the glass bottle tightly, then turned and walked into the kitchen to help Zatanna cook. When the two finished cooking and walked out of the kitchen, the original bottle was filled with white mosquito-repellent smoke. Gino picked up the bottle and shook it, and there was a slight collision sound inside. Now, do you want to say it? You two demons, kill me. In the smoke, Maiev wailed miserably. This human was far more evil than a demon. He even felt that Lord Lucifer should have this man tattooed on his body. Whose good person exorcises demons and tortures them with mosquito coils? I'll give you a few more sticks if I don't tell you. Gino sneered, picking up a few more sticks of insect-repellent incense. Satan, don't, never, I say. The devil's sharp voice even had a hint of crying. Zatanna was sitting on the sofa, listening to the information. The demon howled, it's the spear of destiny, the spear of destiny. Gino looked at Zatanna. The girl frowned, stood up, took out an encyclopedia from the bookshelf, browsed it, and quickly gave the answer. The spear of destiny, also known as the spear of Longinus, is said to have been a flying weapon held by a Roman soldier who stabbed Jesus to death. It has some incredible power because it is stained with the blood of the Son of God. Zatanna's face was terrifyingly dark because she had already made some guesses about what the son of Lucifer wanted to do. So, he probably wants to return to the world with this artifact. Zatanna flipped through the book for analysis, quickly found the content from the book, and read, if you want a powerful demon to come to the world, you need a spear of destiny contaminated by the Son of God, a medium born with a psychic physique, and with the help of an angel. A psychic medium is a human being who is born with the ability to see ghosts and gods. But a powerful angelic help would never be possible. Zatanna said to herself, her face full of confusion, those higher angels are loyal to God and will never betray God. Gino shrugged and put forward a different view. Then how did Lucifer fall to heaven? Zatanna was silent, and then her expression became increasingly ugly. She knew something was serious. If Mammon is really allowed to return to the world, it will be a disaster for the world. The premise of Zatanna's care is that her own life will not be affected, but if the son of the devil comes to the world, everyone will not have a good life. The existing order will collapse, and chaos and killing will be the norm in the world. This goes against Zatanna's ideals. The girl took a deep breath and looked at Kino seriously. Kino, I participated in the plan to kill Mammon you mentioned. Gino shrugged, threw the glass bottle on the ground, and said softly, that's all that needs to be said. The next thing to do is to send this devil back to hell. The young man slowly lifted up his gray leather shoes and whispered to the devil in the glass, after returning to hell, please give Mammon a message and ask her to wash her neck and wait for me. Before he finished speaking, the leather shoes fell down. Podgy. The shattered glass crushed the fly's body, and its flat body mixed with red and green internal organs left stains on the floor. What to do next? After finishing the demon, Gino picked up the water glass on the table and took a sip. Professional things still need to be done by professionals. Zatanna pursed her lips and looked ugly. Let's go to a place where we can find the psychic body. Negative emotions from Zatanna +10. Metropolis. Street. Mary's Cathedral. The crucifixion of Jesus hangs in the center of the church. In the painting, Jesus is pierced by nails and his palms are placed on the cross. A Roman soldier holding a spear pierces Jesus' chest with a spear. A dark red carpet is laid in the center of the hall, with neatly arranged bookshelves on both sides. The luxurious chandelier overhead makes this church even more sacred and inviolable. Paw. Black leather shoes stepped on the clean carpet. Gino patted the cold frost on his windbreaker and walked side by side with Zatanna. The young priest walked towards the two of them. How can I help you? No need, just looking for someone. Zatanna's eyes jumped over the young priest and landed on the reception table behind her. Sitting on the chair there was a blonde beauty with fair skin and perfect facial features that looked like they were carved by God. Even sitting on that chair gave people a sense of holiness. She was wearing a black priest's robe and had a calm expression. The priest nodded and turned to leave. Is that woman the one you're looking for? Gino glanced at the girl and subconsciously activated his clairvoyance power, only to find that the woman's body was shrouded in a smooth halo. It's strange that I can't see through this woman. Zatanna clenched her fists nervously. He is not a human being. Gino chuckled. It's interesting. The two approached. The girl glanced at Zatanna, mostly focusing on Gino. She slowly closed the book, raised her eyebrows, and stood up with a smile. As the woman stood up, a gentle aura spread out silently, making people feel relaxed and happy. Good evening. The woman stared at Gino. I don't know what brought you to visit the church so late at night. How can I help? Is such that? Zatanna stared at the woman nervously, and she said slowly, Gabriel, I want to know the whereabouts of the psychic body. Gabriel, Seraph, Archangel, Gatekeeper of Heaven, God's favorite angel, and the shepherd of God's sheep. All of these are titles owned by this angel. Since Lucifer's morning star fell into heaven, his authority has continued to increase. Zatanna stared at this woman with a perfect face and wavy golden hair and said, You have an omniscient eye. I need you to help me find the whereabouts of the psychic body. The so-called psychic bodies refer to children who can see ghosts, demons, and angels since birth. This unique ability also has a proper name, yin-yang eyes, in the mysterious Eastern country. It is a gift and a curse. For children who have been able to see ghosts and demons since childhood, this experience is tantamount to a kind of terrifying torture. Therefore, most psychics will go crazy or commit suicide due to the tremendous pressure before they reach the age of 18, or depression and social derailment. Therefore, if Mammon wants to find a suitable psychic body, there are very few candidates. As long as she finds the psychic body, she can stop Mammon's plan, and this is Zatanna's idea. Controlling the psychic body, he is waiting for work. Zatanna stared at the angel stagnant in the human world with a serious face. The son of the devil wants to use his psychic body to return to the human world. I must stop him. Son of the devil, psychic body. The angel whom Zatanna called Gabriel had an inexplicable smile on his face. She lazily sat back on the chair again, her legs resting on the glass table, looking naughty. Please forgive my presumption, Ms. Zatanna. I wonder if you still remember how the devil's son came to earth. She was talking to herself. The spear of destiny, the psychic body, and the help of a high-level angel. Do you think there might be a traitor among our angels? Gabriel gently curled his long hair with one finger and whispered softly, We are all God's obedient children, and no one will release the son of the devil. So, your worries are unnecessary. The war between hell and heaven does not require the participation of you humans. She waved her hand arrogantly, Please come back. Zatanna was irritated by the woman's arrogant posture, and the rising and falling of her chest was enough to prove the anger in her heart at this moment. Let's go, Kino. Zatanna was furious and turned towards the church door. Gino followed Zatanna and left, not forgetting to look back at the woman sitting on the sofa before leaving. The strange thing is that the other party is also looking at him at this moment. The two eyes collided and quickly separated. Gino and Zatanna walked out of the church. Bang! A slightly solid object hit Gino's shoulder. The black-haired young man in a windbreaker looked embarrassed and fell down the concrete steps. The woman beside him laughed sarcastically, and then walked past the man into the church without looking back. Shit! The young man who was knocked down cursed and got up. He glanced at the tall young man with some confusion. He seemed to have hit a steel plate just now. Constantine. Zatanna on the side recognized this person, and her expression suddenly showed a hint of disgust. I don't see you as someone who can come to church. Just came to ask a few questions. The guy whom Zatanna called Constantine dusted off his trousers and walked into the church expressionlessly. Are you traveling with us? Gino narrowed his eyes and stared at the man's back. He remembered this guy, the famous gangster in the DC universe, who always wore a brown trench coat and had a slovenly temperament. But looking at the guy who was dressed in black and looked exactly like Keanu Reeves, Kana guessed that this person might not be the image of Constantine in the comics. Ah, he is very famous in our exorcism community. Zatanna shrugged and said with a smile, he is a model worker in the industry. If an exorcist like me works for money, then that guy doesn't want anything in return. He is willing to exorcise demons as long as there are demons. Listen to what you said, maybe he is a good person. Gino also smiled. What kind of Clark in the exorcism world? No, on the contrary, this man is foul-mouthed and selfish. He never attends church activities and does not pray to God. But paradoxically, I heard that he exorcises demons just so that he can go to heaven after death. In a familiar church. Father, my sister's funeral must be held in a traditional way. The woman who had bypassed Constantine before had approached the priest to talk. The old priest sighed and shook his head firmly. Sorry, Angela, Isabella's death was a suicide. It is an unforgivable sin. People who commit suicide cannot have a traditional funeral. But she loved God, Father, and you know her, she would never kill herself. Discussion, argument, anger. These things themselves have long been numb. Constantine rubbed his head and turned his gaze to the blonde woman under the altar looking up at the crucifixion. In his eyes, a pair of oppressive black wings slowly appeared behind the woman. I know what you want, kid. Gabriel looked down at the candles on the altar without looking back. Constantine walked silently behind the woman. He circled around and came to the woman, and then said, maybe you should consider giving me more time, so that I can help you send more demons to hell. That won't help, Constantine. Gabriel turned around and looked at the thin-faced exorcist. No matter how many demons you exorcise and send them to hell, you will not be able to ascend to heaven. Why? Constantine couldn't help but grit his teeth, and a little sullenness appeared on his pale cheeks. Didn't I contribute enough? He rushed up to Gabriel, their faces almost touching. He asked in a cold voice, I sent countless devils to hell. No, Constantine, that's not enough. Gabriel said with a smile. If he repented, it would be dedication and sacrifice. And you have none of these things. Besides, you're going to die soon, and the reason is just that you've been smoking 15 cigarettes a day since you were 18 to relieve your fear. So, meet your end. She pressed her cheek against Constantine's and said heart-wrenching words. Maybe only hell. Constantine walked out of the church in despair. His story is simple. Since he was a child, he has been able to see terrifying creatures such as demon ghosts that others cannot observe. Constantine was even sent to a mental hospital for telling his parents. The tremendous pressure gave Constantine the idea of committing suicide. After committing suicide and drowning, he briefly entered the underworld. The sky is filled with red sand and desolation everywhere. Countless demonic deformed monsters roared and roared. Constantine couldn't let go of the scene described in Dante's Divine Comedy for a long time. From then on, his only goal in life was to go to heaven. Midnight Bar. Located in a hidden area of the metropolis, it has always been a favorite place for half-blood angels and half-blood demons. Absolute neutrality, not favoring heaven or hell, this is the foundation of the Midnight Bar. The owner of this bar, Midnight Dad, is also a powerful African witch doctor and exorcist. However, this man seems to be tired of the endless killings. He has already washed his hands and used magic to build a bar in a hidden alley on the west side of the metropolis to earn some money to spend the rest of his life. In a bustling bar, rhythmic music and lights are intertwined, rendering the color of the wine glass. All kinds of good-looking men and women joked and talked with each other, and from time to time they walked to the corner in pairs. Chaos and decadence are the main theme of this bar. The witch corpse with a stiff expression opened the bar door. Gino and Zatanna walked into the bar side by side. The noisy music made the girl frown slightly. But Gino was looking at everything nearby with great interest. Everything he saw was a pair of eyes with red or golden eyes. These are hybrid angels and hybrid demons. The ones with red eyes are hybrid demons, and the ones with golden eyes are angels. These guys are commonly known as unclean ones. Neither angels nor demons want to see them. While the two were observing this group of mixed races, many mixed races in the bar were also observing the two of them. There is a unique blood connection between mixed bloods, but they did not feel it in these two people. In other words, these two people are pure human beings. This made many mixed race people interested. "Hello, handsome guy." A blonde woman with red eyes and big boobs swayed and walked towards Kino in a black dress. Zatanna's face darkened, and she stepped in front of Gino, staring at the hybrid demon warily. "Sorry, we are not here for fun." After hitting a wall with the girl, the half-breed was not angry. She smiled charmingly and pulled out a warm card from her chest and stuffed it into Gino's hand. She winked at the boy and said, "If you want, please feel free to contact me." Ah, Gino watched the woman leave. Her plump and round figure was eye-catching. His cheek seemed to be stared at by a cold gaze. "Turn around." Zatanna stared at the boy expressionlessly. "As a professional, I need to remind you that hybrid demons will be greedy and drain people of their essence." "What a half-blood succubus." Gino chuckled and teased, throwing the card in his hand to the girl. "Let's do business." The two men walked to the counter. The bartender in this bar is a tall black man with a strange bone ring on his hand. Seeing the two people approaching, the bartender said, "Drinks are $5, and there is a reward of 30% of the agency fee." Gino looked up at the blackboard hanging above the bar. There are all kinds of weird bounty requests written on it. He spends a lot of money to find a good half-blood angel, investing $3,000. Finding materials for the devil's bones and ashes, we will contribute $5,000. Gino took a quick glance and it seemed that the owner of this bar was quite good at doing business. "Hang up a reward for me." Gino knocked on the table. "Invest $10,000 to find the whereabouts of the psychic body." The bar nodded, without asking for the other party's identity. He took out the credit card machine and said, "Cash or credit card?" Times are changing, and even the magical world is advancing with each passing day. "Swipe the card, use mine." Gino threw out the bank card in his pocket. As the card reader beeps, it means that the reward will be hung on the blackboard above the bar for everyone's attention. Constantine opened the door and walked into the bar. "Hey, look, who's here? Isn't this Constantine?" The moment they saw this man walking in, many mixed blood demons jeered. "I heard that you got lung cancer from smoking and you don't have many days to live." Before he finished speaking, sarcastic laughter rang out from the crowd, and the whole bar was filled with a cheerful atmosphere. "Go to hell, you fool. You don't deserve to live." Constantine was silent, lowered his head, and walked towards the inner room with his head lowered. People hate dogs, which is the best way to describe him. Pushing open the door and entering the inner room, a luxurious office comes into view. Luxurious and eccentric skulls with golden luster are placed on the oak table made of precious wood. A stocky black man wearing a mink coat was leaning on a chair and puffing away smoke. Regarding Constantine who walked into the room, the black man didn't even raise his head. He just flicked his pipe and his thick voice echoed in the office, "Look who is here. Our counterfeiter Constantine." Just a few months earlier, Constantine had coaxed Papa Midnight into purchasing a batch of magical fakes. The price was that 3 of the customers who bought Midnight Dad's goods were killed. For this reason, many people ran into the store to cause trouble, which caused him big trouble. The angry Father Midnight even hired a group of thugs to beat the opponent severely. The reason why Constantine was not killed was because Father Midnight wanted to see this guy die miserably. "I heard that you have lung cancer." The strong black man grinned, showing his big white teeth. "Lucifer recently released news that when you die, he will personally rush to the place of your death to collect your soul." "I heard." Father Midnight leaned forward and sneered into those black eyes. He built a devil's playground for you in hell, where there are 100 lust demons waiting to taste your white and tender body. Wow, I'm extremely honored. Constantine smiled nonchalantly, but the heaviness in his eyes was not fake. I want to ask you if there is any way you can keep me alive. Rejected by the angel, Constantine can only hope to prolong his life. Survive, of course. The black man grinned and said in a sinister tone, have you seen the witch corpses standing at the door of my bar? Transform your body into theirs, let alone survive. You won't have any problem living for 500 years. He could hear the ridicule in Midnight's father's words, and he didn't want to help him. The witch corpse is a human puppet made from a human body by magicians in Africa. Although it has its own thoughts, everything is controlled by its master. It's better to die than to live like this. Fake squid. He raised his middle finger, then took out a cigarette and held it in his mouth. He stood up and left without looking back. Since you can't survive, you might as well make a fortune and enjoy yourself in your last days. Constantine came to the bar and ordered a glass of wine. After asking the bar not to spit in his glass, his eyes scanned the blackboard above his head. Looking for the psychic body, the reward is $10,000. Seeing this news, Constantine's eyes lit up. He remembered that the policewoman who came to him before seemed to be a psychic. Bartender. Constantine pointed at the blackboard with a smile on his face. Please take down this task, I will take it. $10,000 is enough to last me a long time. Zhejiang noodles. In American Chinese food, a bowl of sweet and greasy pasta is served to the table. Constantine held a fork in his hand and took a large swipe of noodles into his mouth without any image. Most of the diners around are locals from the metropolitan area. Entering the United States, a country dominated by sweets, even the broad and profound Chinese food has to make relative changes. Do you know about General Tso's chicken? Zatanna sat in the corner holding a magic book and flipping through it. She did not intend to participate in the conversation between the two men. So, can you lead us to find the psychic body? Gino took a sip of tea and stared at Constantine with a playful expression. After eating a large bowl of fried noodles, Constantine wiped the sweet juice from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand, and skillfully took out a cigarette from his pocket. He glanced at the corner of the young man's eyebrows. Is there a fire? Gino chuckled, put his fingers close to the cigarette butt, and then snapped his fingers. Snapped. A cluster of flames dancing on the fingertips lit the cigarette, and the pungent smell of smoke filled the air. Constantine was a little surprised by Gino's performance. How did he do that just now? Magic. But he didn't feel any trace of magic from Gino. But obviously Constantine is a smart man, and he has no intention of exploring the other party's secrets. Let's get back to business. Constantine knocked on the table. There was ridicule in his eyes. Yes, the DMN's psychic body. I know too. One is me. The man pointed his finger at his chest without hesitation and said with a self-deprecating tone, I could see those things when I was young. Things that humans can't see and shouldn't be able to see. My family can't see it, and they're like most parents. They thought I was crazy, so they sent me to a mental hospital, and the doctors there used unique treatments to break my spirit. In the end I chose to commit suicide, and then I was revived. There I saw a vision of hell, and I'm not here to hear about your miserable childhood, John. Gino interrupted Constantine. Constantine's experience was indeed tragic, but Gino was not interested in it. He stared at the man. You try your best to help me, and when it is done, I will give you a reward. Gino glanced at both sides of the man's chest. Through the skin, fat and blood vessels, Gino could see that there were already many black shadows inside Constantine's two lungs. Maybe it can also cure your lung cancer. Constantine sneered and exhaled a breath of foul air from his nose. You know what disease I have, and there is no possibility of recovery. That's not necessarily the case. The world is so big and full of wonders, Constantine. Gino said as he took out a bottle of amber gold from his pocket. Never judge things you don't understand. The liquid sparkling with the crystal light of the Milky Way made the mocking smile on Constantine's face freeze. As a liar, a master of lies, and a magician, he was naturally able to tell that the galactic light flashing in the liquid was not a magic trick. Whoosh, whoosh. Constantine felt his breathing quicken. He subconsciously reached out to touch the vial, but a big hand grabbed his wrist. I'm talking about after it's done, Constantine. Gino smiled, but his tone was unquestionable. I understand. Constantine retracted his palm with a smile, but what Gino took out evoked a glimmer of hope in his originally frustrated heart. He will indeed go to hell after his death, but if he can buy time, he may be able to change the outcome of going to hell. Tell me about another psychic body. Gino waved lightly at the table, and the vial originally placed on the table disappeared as if out of thin air. That's right. Constantine did not hesitate and told Kino the information he knew. Yesterday, a woman came to me and said that her sister had jumped from the building, and she called my name while jumping. I don't want to be a part of this, though. I discovered that the woman was being followed by a group of demons. Gino nodded. Continue. After that, I speculated that she was probably involved in some conspiracy between demons, and I helped her expel those demons. But, Constantine sneered, what kind of person can be favored by the devil? For psychics like me, demons like to scare us and then drag people like us with special abilities into hell. The female police officer. Gino squinted and recalled the face of the woman in his mind. She was a policewoman with short burgundy hair. She had a police badge in her backpack, and hidden under her short shirt was a pistol. An apartment in the metropolitan East End. Angela looked at the tall buildings of the Luther Group in the distance. She held her hands on the railings and opened her mouth to sigh. Isabella. A look of reminiscence flashed in the woman's eyes. Isabella, Angela's sister. Just a week ago, her sister, a devout believer in God, committed suicide by jumping off a building without warning. This fact made the woman simply unable to accept this fact. Her sister is a devout Christian, and suicide is an unforgivable sin in Christianity that leads to hell. So Angela took advantage of the police to view the surveillance from that night. Later, she got the name, Constantine, from her sister's mouth shape before jumping off the building. What does that mean exactly? Angela frowned, and after that, she found Constantine. But the other party's image disappointed her. A liar, a smoker, and a profanity speaker. Zizi. The incandescent lights in the apartment flickered for no reason, and the surrounding electrical appliances also flickered erratically. Angela came back to her senses and looked at the flashing electrical appliances around her. Even the air in the room seemed a bit colder. What happened? Her body was tense. After these recent events, women have begun to believe in doctrines such as devils and angels. Angela. A voice that seemed to come from the abyss sounded in her ears from far to near. Puzzle. As if the twisted voltage melted the filament, the flickering circuit suddenly went out after reaching a critical point. The next moment, a horrifying scream suddenly rang through the small apartment building. Zizi. When the lights came on again, all that was left in the house was a wooden chair that had fallen to the ground and a dark hole in the wall. Da da da. The hands of the clock are beating, and time is passing through space minute by minute. 30 minutes later. Dong dong. There was a knock on the door but no one answered. A male voice sounded faintly. There is no one in the house. Buzz. The solid wooden door was cut like paper by the blazing sight. Bang. As a large hole was cut out of the wooden door, a figure slowly stepped into the house. Kino looked at the bachelor apartment. The open wardrobe contained several sets of women's brooches, overturned chairs, and broken water glasses. A light scent of women's perfume lingered on the tip of my nose. The most eye-catching thing is the huge hole blasted in the wall. Looks like we're late. Gino didn't look back and told the two people behind him. The living room floor made of wooden planks, the overturned chairs and the smashed walls proved that there was supernatural involvement in this matter. Pa. Constantine took the lighter from the woman's table and lit his cigarette. He opened his mouth and blew out the smoke ring, smelling the smell of sulfur in the air. The devil kidnapped him. Zatanna's face looked a little ugly. The girl stamped her feet anxiously, and her high heels made a clicking sound on the floor. What should we do now? We have to find her. Zatanna didn't want to wake up the next day with disgusting demons running around the streets. Don't make any noise. Gino raised his finger to signal the two of them to be quiet. Things haven't reached the point of no return yet. Just be careful enough. Gino took a deep breath, and in the next moment, all the surrounding materials gradually became transparent in his field of vision, even returning to the most basic transparent form of lines. Looking across the ceiling, the woman's upstairs neighbor was a homebody who was frantically showing off his craftsmanship in front of the computer. Skimming the ceiling and looking into the depths of the closet, The lace material and some interesting toys in the wardrobe arouse your imagination. Gino lowered his head, and soon, an ancient coin in the corner of the floor caught the boy's attention. Found it. Gino strode towards the corner, bent down and took out a copper-colored coin with a strange demonic pattern engraved on the front and back. What is this? There are specialties in the art industry, and professional things need to be handled by professionals. Constantine took the first step to snatch the coins from Zatanna. He was hired by Gino, and he had to prove his worth. Otherwise, what would happen if his employer didn't pay the bill? Constantine picked up the coin and looked at it carefully under the incandescent lamp above his head. A ferocious devil's head was engraved on the brass surface. Under the head, there is a short sentence written in Roman. It's the demon Balthazar. Constantine dropped the cigarette butt, stamped it out, and blew out a smoke ring. One of Satan's fools in the world. Do you know where he is? Ho ho. The topmost floor of a skyscraper. A group of men, women and children in suits and ties gathered here. An elite man in a suit who looked rather Indian stood on the podium in the conference room, speaking fluent curry-flavored English, and said to the demons below, Lord Mammon is about to come to the world. He opened his arms and spoke passionately. He will bring blood and slaughter to this world, and let everything fall under his command. And as a loyal believer of Lord Mammon, we will run the world for him. Before he even finished speaking, the excited shouts of demons could be heard from the audience. That's right. Keep these humans in captivity. Let them be our food. Rip their chests to taste. The demons' eyes glowed red one by one, with red luster shining in their eyes. They can't wait, I declare. Balthazar spread his arms. The ceremony begins. Following Balthazar's words, several red-eyed demons carried a woman tied up with hemp rope into the conference hall. Demons of all kinds stared greedily at the woman. The rich divinity in her body made them eager to pounce on her and feast on her now. But Mammon's reputation makes these demons dare not cross the thunder pool. They passed the news one after another and carried the unconscious Angela to the podium where Balthazar was. The constant bumps and shaking made Angela wake up faintly. The surrounding air was filled with a rich, putrid smell of sulfur. She saw pairs of blood-red eyes staring at her. Let me go, let me go. She struggled wildly, fear and despair spreading in the woman's heart. She struggled hard, but the strong hemp rope bound her feet, preventing her from moving at all. Breathing quickens, fear spreads. The demons all let out a low evil laugh. Everyone knew what this girl was about to go through. The spear that sent Jesus to death would pierce her belly, allowing the son of Satan to come to earth. Bang! Angela was violently thrown to the podium. Let's start. Balthazar rubbed his suit and tie, and smiled like a dog at Angela. Don't worry, death is just an instant. He stretched out his index finger and scratched his palm. Tick tick tick. Dark brown blood dripped down the palms onto the floor, and a strong smell of sulfur filled the air. Other demons followed suit and cut their palms. Along with the brown blood on the ground, the stench of pus increased and even flooded the entire floor, while a crimson five-pointed star array slowly lit up on the floor. PFF'd, cough. Angela watched desperately as the brown demon blood covered her ears and her cheeks. The body is boiling and burning. There was extreme pain in her abdomen. Angela raised her head with difficulty. She was horrified to see a human head with an unclear face struggling wildly in her belly. It seemed that it could not wait to break out of her body, just like an alien in a horror movie, monster. As the water level rose, the suffocation caused by drowning made her body sway unconsciously. She longed to live, but the demons in the whole room obviously would not give her a chance. Hold her down. Several demons grinned and grabbed the woman's limbs. Balthazar grinned, and then picked up the white cloth placed on the table beside him. Gently lifting the white cloth, Balthazar held the tip of a spear exuding a strong cold aura in his hand. A playful smile appeared on the demon's face. The spear of Longinus, the spear that killed Jesus, the spear of uncleanness. He seemed to be saying to himself, now, it's your turn. The whispers of the devil ended, and the next moment, the atmosphere in the hall that originally exuded an evil aura condensed. A breath of holiness and kindness suddenly descended on the heaven and earth here. Roar! The demons in the audience roared. They felt the angel's breath and were restless. In an instant, with the shining of holy light, many demons in the room were swept by the ultimate holy energy and exploded into ashes and dissipated. Wow! A pair of jet black wings spread out, and Gabriel, wearing a white angel robe, descended from the sky. Balthazar held a black curtain with both hands to resist the holy light, and the smooth energy swept over the black curtain and made a sizzling sound. Angel, put away your light. Despicable one, hand over the spear of Longinus. Gabriel stepped on the ground with his bare feet, and the blood stained on the ground spread out. He seemed to be very afraid of the archangel. Gabriel had a peaceful and serious expression on his face. She folded a pair of wings behind her. Ah! Balthazar sneered and threw away the spearhead in his hand, while taunting, who would have thought that God's most faithful sheepdog would betray him? This is not betrayal. Father is too kind to mankind. Gabriel gently picked up the spearhead on the ground. Those who have committed the most heinous crimes only need to pray and repent to enter the arms of God. Too kind. Gabriel repeated his words again and walked towards Angela, who was unconscious in the pool of blood, holding the spearhead. It's time for the guilty to be punished. Gabriel's eyes were firm. He held the spearhead with both hands and stabbed it down suddenly, and the monster in the woman's abdomen seemed to be sensed, and the struggle became more intense. The son of the devil is about to come to the world. During Gabriel's thousands of years, he witnessed Lucifer's fall into heaven and Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. He witnessed God's favoritism for mankind. Gabriel just watched all this with cold eyes. Until Lucifer and God used the world as a bet. Until he witnessed the tyranny and cruelty of mankind again. Contrast this with God's harsh standards for treating angels. A lazy person is relegated to the human world and becomes a human being, losing his qualifications as an angel. The proud are demoted to earth and incarnated as humans, and are not allowed to stay in heaven. And what about humans? No matter how heinous a person is, as long as he sincerely prays to God before dying, he will be forgiven and ascend to heaven to bask in the glory of God. Gabriel couldn't accept it. He couldn't accept God's favoritism, just as Lucifer couldn't stand God's favoritism toward Adam and Eve. If anyone can gain God's favor by praying sincerely, let the devil destroy the world and return God's favor to the angels. For the kingdom of heaven. Gabriel spread his broad and flamboyant wings, and flapped his wings to stir up gusts of wind. Chang! The cold light of the spear stabbed down. Gabriel's holy face flashed into a sickly smile. Soon, very soon, my father's eyes will return to the angels. PFF. The spearhead pierced the abdominal cavity. However, the spearhead that was supposed to pierce directly seemed to be affected by some mysterious influence, and everything around it seemed to freeze for a moment. Gabriel with a sick smile, the demon Balthazar hiding in the corner, and the ferocious monster head in Angela's belly with a pained face. 4 creatures with different expressions coexist in a house filled with the smell of sulfur, sketching out a strange, holy and evil, oil painting. Then, bang, like the first flash of lightning in the universe. The originally solid cement wall shattered. The flying cement blocks seemed to be solidified in the air. The dust frozen in the sky is even more beautiful under the moonlight. Pa! A pair of leather shoes stepped lightly on the cement bricks. The blond boy turned his back to the moonlight, and the bright moonlight reflected behind him, as if it was also paying tribute to him, which made the boy more handsome. His blue eyes stared at everything around him. A cold voice came out of his mouth. It seems that I am not too late. Gino smiled and walked towards Gabriel, who was about to pierce Angela's belly with a spear. As God's most beloved angel since Lucifer, there is no doubt about Gabriel's strength. He sensed that something had broken into the room. But its ability is not to freeze time, but because the opponent is too fast to catch. Gabriel's eyeballs moved thousands of times faster to capture the scene. He saw a figure walking towards this side at a leisurely pace. He wears a black windbreaker with a high-collar white sweatshirt, long blonde hair and a handsome face. When he recognized the appearance of the visitor, a look of surprise appeared on Gabriel's beautiful face. He knew this man, this boy who had gone to church with the daughter of the master of irony to seek his help. Before that, Gabriel even laughed at these 2 people for being stupid. However, I didn't expect that when we meet again, it will be a situation where I am about to complete my plan. Gabriel, right. The pair of leather shoes stood a few meters away from Gabriel. Gino stared at Gabriel's pair of black wings with great interest, thinking that if he gave these wings to Lex and inserted them into the cheap guy's back, would he be able to fly like an angel? However, Gino is skeptical about this. No one from the Zibin family can go to heaven. The final destination is hell. At this moment, Gabriel's expression gradually became ferocious. He didn't know the reason for this mysterious man's sudden appearance, but he knew that the plan he had been preparing for decades must not fail here. Ah! Gabriel opened his mouth and roared, and his smooth forehead gradually lit up with fluorescent white light. The next moment, a small gap opened on his forehead, and immediately, a sacred and emotionless eye of God opened faintly. Gino looked at Gabriel, who had a third eye popping out of his forehead, with a playful look on his face. He watched Gabriel flying up with huge wings. Being able to increase his own speed to the same frequency as Gino, the opponent's strength at this moment barely ignited Gino's desire to fight. I'm curious. Gino raised his head and stared at Gabriel. He gently stepped on his feet and immediately flew into the air to look at Gabriel. The young man's voice was light but his expression was arrogant. Do angels also feel pain? Human, I admire your courage. Gabriel flapped his wings, his whole body burning with holy light. But, under the all-knowing eye, you will taste failure. The gentleman is farting. Gino was unmoved. He just grinned and hooked his hand at Gabriel. Let me feel the strength of the archangel. Gabriel stared expressionlessly at the man who dared to provoke him. He just turned his hand slightly, and immediately held a smooth long sword burning with the blazing fire of heaven in his hand. Humanity, atone. He flapped his wings, and at extremely high speed, his body turned into a golden flash of light and hit Gino. Bang! The golden light suddenly hit the figure, bombarded with terrifying speed and power, and even the air sputtered out layers of ripples visible to the naked eye. The dust was flying, but Gino turned into a black dot like a golf ball that was knocked away and was blown away to the high-rise building with one blow. Repulse with one blow. Gabriel watched the mortal who dared to offend the power of the angels fly towards the distance. He turned around and planned to continue the unfinished business before. Kacha kacha. Stepping on the cement residue with his bare feet, Gabriel picked up the spear of destiny on the ground again. He raised his spear and stabbed it down. Snapped. The spear that was supposed to pierce Angela's abdominal cavity was gently held by 2 fingers. What? Gabriel's pupils narrowed. An invisible and extremely domineering stance enveloped him like a raging tsunami. My whole body was stiff and I couldn't move. The 3 eyes on Gabriel's forehead shone brightly. He turned his head with great effort, and a smiling face came into view. How can this be? Gabriel's heart trembled. With such a terrifying power, he could guarantee that even the strongest angel Lucifer would be injured. But the mortal man seemed unharmed at all. I'm not dead yet. Gino held the spear of destiny between his fingers, raised his eyebrows at Gabriel, and in the next moment, his fingers suddenly exerted force. The tremendous power suddenly broke out, and Gabriel felt the pain in his wrist holding the spear, and subconsciously let go. The spear flew away with a swish, leaving no time for Gabriel to be in a daze. In an instant, another iron arm clasped Gabriel's delicate and smooth neck. The young man's smiling face with a pair of emotionless blue eyes stared at the archangel, and said the unfinished words, "Why are you in such a hurry?" Boom! The terrifying biological stance erupted, and Gino dragged Gabriel and slammed his entire body into the wall. Our game is not over yet. It's strange. Every night, my brain is full of ideas. During the day, my brain is like rust. I can't produce any gorgeous words. I'm so stupid. Humiliation, anger, pain. All kinds of complicated emotions hit Gabriel's heart like waves crashing on a rock. Humiliation, the ultimate humiliation. During his thousands of years of existence, Gabriel was a god who stood high above the kingdom of heaven, overlooking the human world. He is God's most beloved angel, and he is the benchmark for angels. But, the once aloof archangel was now pressed against the face like a dead dog and smashed into the wall. For God's creation, the solid concrete wall cannot harm it at all. But it's not as harmful as having someone spit on your face during an argument, but it's extremely insulting. Humans, die. As a creature of God, Gabriel also had profound combat experience. He took out the seraph sword and stabbed the boy in the chest with his backhand. He will pierce the man's chest, and the indestructible seraph sword will burn his heart. However, the expected divine punishment did not materialize. The sharp sword that Gabriel was proud of seemed to have struck a cold stone, and its momentum was stagnant. Chang! The artifact struck his skin, causing sparks to fly in all directions. The cold reality was like a slap on Gabriel's face, making him dizzy. His seraph sword can't even cut the opponent. For the first time, an emotion called fear arose in Gabriel's heart. Snapped. His wrist was clasped and then gently twisted. Gotcha. The crisp sound of bone cracking resounded through the room, and a look of pain appeared on Gabriel's beautiful cheeks. He only felt that his hands were empty. The sword of Seraph was actually taken away by that mortal. This sword is good, it's mine. Gino pushed Gabriel into the wall with one hand and played with the Seraph sword with the other. Asshole. Gabriel raised his head and forced out evil words through his teeth. He suddenly opened his wings, and those wings flapped wildly on the steel body, causing a thunderous sound. Those thousands of wings exploded, each feather shining with dazzling light. It exploded like a peacock spreading its tail, and its sharp feathers turned into life-killing arrows in an instant. The air waves rolled up by it made the clothes squeak. The marble beneath his feet was dented and broken. Gino let go of Gabriel, and he jumped back slightly to distance himself. Looking at the angel feathers coming towards him, the boy's eyes also lit up with red light. Gabriel is not the only one who can use long-range attacks. In an instant, the violent heat vision energy roared and divided the entire house, cement shattered and feathers melted wherever it passed. Even the air seemed to be ignited and made a sizzling sound. Everything in front of me seemed to be cut into two pieces by the Creator God. The beams of light ignited furniture and feathers, filling the room with blazing firelight. This is impossible. Gabriel's eyes widened, unable to accept that his attack was easily disintegrated by the other party. There are many places you can't think of, don't be too surprised. Gino opened his mouth to mock, with a cold smile on his face, because I am a miracle. Before he finished speaking, a figure suddenly stood in front of Gabriel. Gino raised his right leg and slammed it at Gabriel. The powerful and heavy whip legs slammed into the woman, and Gabriel's long combat experience allowed him to raise his hands to block. Boom! The arm and right leg collided with a deafening sound. The sound waves detonated the air and shook the cement residue on the ground. Then, bang! Gabriel only felt a pain in his arm, like a roaring cannonball flying backwards. After smashing into the wall, he couldn't control his body and flew high into the sky. Aha! Gino also came to Gabriel's head like a bolt of lightning, raised his fist and slammed it at the woman. Thousands of fierce and domineering fist shadows fell like a violent storm. The speed was so fast that Gabriel couldn't resist, and the violent fists kept hitting his skin everywhere. Bang bang bang! A series of dull thunders sounded in the night sky of the metropolis. Chest, belly, arms, cheeks. Punch after punch, and with the swing and bombardment of his fists, Gabriel's perfect God-created cheeks soon swelled at a speed visible to the naked eye. His body penetrated a tall building and fell onto the concrete pavement. Then, like a bowling ball hitting a hole, it created a ravine dozens of meters deep on the road. Huge amounts of dust were thrown up, obscuring the view. Gino was suspended high in the sky, looking down at the road below his feet with an expressionless expression. At the end of the cement road, an embarrassed figure stood up staggeringly. A trace of golden blood oozed from the snow-white skin, making it even more poignant. Gabriel's right wing was broken and hanging unconsciously. He staggered up and climbed up, his broken arm hanging, and his golden eyes filled with anger and malice. Mortal! Gabriel felt his voice tremble, and his body was also trembling with anger. How dare you! He really didn't expect that he would really be driven crazy by this human being. But what was even more difficult for Gabriel to accept was that he actually had a faint fear of this human being from the bottom of his heart. A god would actually be afraid of humans. Don't go crazy, Angel. Gino roughly interrupted the mad Gabriel. You know what? What I hate the most is the way you angels are so arrogant. But look at yourself. The cold night wind blew by, and Gabriel felt a pain in his throat. He found that he was leaving the ground, and the steel arm was clasping his neck tightly, and then, the young man's eyes lit up with a blazing red light. Since you think humans are so weak, then let you be him. Buzz. The red light flashed, and Gabriel felt severe pain in his shoulders. The angel's sacred and smooth wings suddenly fell to dust. Large swaths of golden light spurted out from the wound, and Gabriel shouted in despair, no. For angels, cutting off their wings means that the angel voluntarily gave up his identity as an angel. The divine power was dissipating in every part of her body, and Gabriel smelled the burnt smell in the air. She found that her body seemed to have something extra that didn't exist before. What did you do to me? My wings, Gabriel roared wildly. I just want you to experience the joy of being a human being. Gino sneered, without looking at Gabriel, and threw him on the ground like a bag of garbage. Bang! The heavy swing sent pain through Gabriel's internal organs. But these pains are nothing compared to the exile he suffered. He lost his status as an angel and became a despicable human being. Gabriel, angel. Gino slowly walked towards the woman who was lying on the ground with her eyes blank. Snapped. The black leather shoes stepped on Gabriel's face, and the young man's faint voice sounded, "What a weak angel. Just kill me." Gabriel closed his eyes in despair. No. Gino took off his leather shoes, turned around and left without forgetting, killing people and punishing the heart. I think leaving you to suffer in the world is the best choice. Negative emotions from Gabriel. +1000, +1000. An empty space on the 9th floor of a metropolitan high-rise building. The air was filled with the foul smell of sulfur and blood. Countless black ashes like burnt lime were scattered on the ground, and shoes made a dull sound when stepping on them. Zatanna looked at the messy hall and the 2 large holes blasted out of the left wall. Gulu. The woman swallowed. She couldn't imagine that her former playmate was as powerful as a monster and could actually fight with Gabriel, the boss of the kingdom of heaven. A gust of cold night wind blew through the leaky wall, and Zatanna shuddered as she recalled what she had to do. Angela, who looked in pain, was lying on the cold floor struggling hard. But the squirming head on the smooth belly makes one's body unable to help but get goosebumps. Don't forget what we're here for. Constantine put out his cigarette butt, swung his windbreaker and walked towards Angela as if he was showing off. Next, he will set up an exorcism circle with Zatanna to drive Mammon, the son of the devil, out of the world and let him go back to where he belongs. Help me. Angela, who was originally desperate, turned her head with difficulty. When she saw Constantine walking towards her, the woman's eyes burst out with a bright desire to survive. She doesn't want to die, she wants to live. Constantine knelt down and looked at the strange human face squirming in his belly. As if aware of Constantine's gaze, the strange face under the belly fat struggled even more crazily, and one could see the depth of its hatred for Constantine. Don't worry, ma'am, as long as you cooperate with us, it will be fine. Constantine took a rough look at the situation, casually comforted Angela, and stood up again to look at the magic circle in the hall. Scanning the magic lines on the floor, Constantine quickly figured out that these demons were using an ancient and complicated demon summoning ritual. But its biggest advantage is that it allows the devil to retain all its strength and come to the world. Little tricks. Constantine spoke an Eastern idiom, and then he looked at Zatanna. Let's start. 2 outstanding young mages stood on Angela's left and right. They spread their hands, palms facing up. The complicated and gorgeous magic arcana outlines beautiful and gorgeous golden lines to wrap Angela. Constantine and Zatanna recite the exorcism mantra together. As the word sequence accelerated, the golden lines glowed brightly, and the monster head in Angela's belly also let out a shrill scream. As for Angela, as early as the moment when the demon was struggling crazily, he was struck by severe pain and endured to the extreme, causing him to faint. Demon. Constantine's tone became increasingly passionate. In the name of my father, I want you to retreat. Before he could finish the word, Constantine heard Zatanna's scream on the other side. Behind you, Constantine. Behind. Constantine turned his head subconsciously. However, what greeted him was a spearhead that exuded cold light and holy aura. PFF'd. The tip of the spear pierced Constantine's chest, and scarlet blood surged out of the wound like a curtain of water from a broken embankment. Falling down from the pain, Constantine covered the wound in embarrassment and tried to stop the bleeding. The black windbreaker was also stained red with blood and looked extremely miserable. Constantine struggled to hold his eyelids open. The symptoms of excessive blood loss made him dizzy. He stared at the figure that attacked him. The ugly rotten skin with green pits, and the hair that should be thick as barren of grass. This is a living demon. He was lucky enough to survive the battle between Gino and Gabriel, and he seized the opportunity. Idiot, Constantine. Balthazar smiled happily. Balthazar. Constantine wanted to stand up, but his legs seemed to have had their hamstrings removed and he couldn't move. On the other side, the magic circle was violently destroyed, and Zatanna, who was casting a spell, also received damage backlash. The girl's face was pale, her legs were trembling, and she couldn't stand still. Her whole body was weak and she just fell to the ground with a plop, and was unconscious. This kind of magical backlash can cause extremely profound damage to magicians. It's like when you are about to reach the finish line in a 1,000-meter race and someone comes and punches you hard in the abdomen. It takes time to relax. Lord Mammon. Balthazar ignored Constantine and the two, and his body swung into a rising black mist that enveloped Angela. I will send you to this world right now. An ugly demonic arm dripping with pus condensed out of the black mist, and the sharp spearhead suddenly pierced the woman's belly. The next moment, as Longinus's spear pierced Angela's abdomen, an invisible and terrifying pressure exploded in an instant. The ultimate evil aura swept through the room between pillows. Countless blood-red fog filled the air from nowhere around the hall. The light flickers. Constantine struggled to lift the engraved pattern on his right hand to activate magic. With the help of a faint magic light, he saw a creature with strange proportions and a thin body slowly walking towards this side from the depths of the blood mist. Scare, scare, scare. A shrill, weird laugh echoed through the hall. The atmosphere of terror makes one's hair stand on end. Constantine, I have been looking forward to meeting you for countless days and nights. And now, my dream has finally come true. The blood mist surged, and a pair of thick pale white arms poked out of the thick mist. The 10 fingers on it are full of strong and sharp green poisonous claws. A head with a twisted and ferocious face was revealed. If Gino were here, he would definitely joke about Voldemort with a nose. Yes, just like the shape of Voldemort, the head of the demon Mammon is not so much a head as a skeleton covered with thin skin. The head, with its eye sockets so sunken that a whole table tennis ball could fit inside, was even more horrifying. Constantine pursed his lips and stared at the son of the devil slowly walking towards him. He had already thought of everything he would face next. As a model worker in the world of exorcism, half of the demons in hell were banished by Constantine himself. And now, when Mammon kills him, he will also go to hell and endure endless torture. No, there must be some way, there must be some way. Constantine's eyes rolled crazily, and he knew that all he lacked now was time. Gino is fighting Gabriel, although he doesn't know that the opponent is so powerful and is taking a more physical exorcism, referring to killing demons with fists and strength route. Constantine believes that it is only a matter of time before Gino wins. And what he needs to do is to fight for the time for Gino to come back. Just because you want to take me to hell. Constantine's lips curved into an angry smile. He picked up a sharp shard of cement from the ground. Then give your wrist a light stroke. Constantine's expression remained unchanged as he watched the blood flow from his wrist. The demon Mammon also opened its mouth at the same time, revealing 2 rows of sharp teeth, and pounced on Constantine. However, it was accompanied by a string of heavenly chanting tones. A ray of golden light seemed to be falling from high in the sky, and the originally holy singing became deeper. Everything around him froze in an instant, and a playful voice seemed to sound from the bottom of Constantine's heart, "Hello, John." Tick-tock, tick-tock. Drips of charred sludge. A pair of feet covered in black mud stepped lightly on the floor. Satan, a handsome man with bare feet, a white suit, and a sick smile on his face appeared out of thin air in this hall. Constantine collapsed on the ground like a dead dog, with a sneer on his face. Finally, Lucifer. Lucifer, son of the stars, the first angel in the world to commit the sin of pride, the great enemy of heaven, described in the book of Isaiah, bright star, son of the morning, why have you fallen from the sky? How come you, who conquered all nations, were cut down to the ground? Ah, I haven't heard such ancient praise for a long time. Lucifer bit his head and looked at the son of the devil who was fixed in the hall, his dishonest child Mammon. For a moment, Lucifer looked handsome. His face was a little more angry. This is my game with God. He walked slowly towards Mammon, never forgetting to look back at Constantine, and politely explained, "I'm sorry, please wait until I send this naughty child back to hell." Before he finished speaking, Lucifer stood behind Mammon as if silently. Snapped. Strong wrists clasped the devil's son's neck. Lucifer lay in Mammon's ear and whispered with an evil smile, "It's time to go back to hell, kid." The next moment, the marble stone surface reflected a scene like burning flames. Mammon had no chance to resist, and it was like a stream of light hitting the floor and disappearing. Then the eyesore is gone. Lucifer whistled like a gangster, pulled out a chair from the conference hall and sat in front of Constantine, spread his legs, put one hand on his leg to support his knee, and stared at Constantine playfully. I said I would personally take you to hell. Constantine, you committed suicide. This is an unforgivable crime. It's time for you to go back to hell with me. Now, it's time. Lucifer stood up and grabbed Constantine's arm, dragging him towards the center of the hall like a dead dog. The clothes rubbed against the ground, making a rustling sound, and Constantine's vision was blurred. Lucifer was whistling in a happy mood. He could throw Constantine into hell in an instant, but he enjoyed the process and fun of torturing Constantine. It was an emotion that gave Lucifer great pleasure in watching the man frighten at the horror to come. He walked, and as the Lord of Hell, his steps were leisurely. He had already thought of 1,000 ways to torture Constantine. I'm afraid, you can't take him away. A voice sounded faintly behind him. Lucifer narrowed his eyes and curled up into a playful smile. Lucifer was a little surprised that someone could escape from the constraints of his own laws. There are only a few existences on the earth that can compete with the power of his own laws, and the only ones that exist are old monsters who rarely come out. When did another strong man appear in the world? Lucifer dropped Constantine and turned to look behind him. A young man wearing a black windbreaker was standing in the corner with his hands in his pockets and a leisurely expression. He didn't know when he appeared there. It could be a long time, or it could be just a moment. Don't be too surprised. There is no strong person on earth, and there is no decent strong person in the world, because I am the strongest. Gino spoke calmly, as if what he said was not an exaggeration, but an ironclad fact. At this moment, Constantine, whose consciousness was half conscious, struggled to open his eyes and uttered a few words from his mouth with difficulty. It's finally here. His supporter came and he could finally rest for a while. Constantine closed his eyes completely and fainted. Now, in the huge conference hall, Gino and Lucifer stood in the left and right corners respectively. Bathed in the bright moonlight, it was like a god descending from the sky, with an indifferent and contemptuous smile on his face. Hidden in a dark and mysterious corner, with a tall body and blue eyes, just standing there quietly gives people an extremely oppressive feeling, like a handsome warrior preparing to kill a god. Lucifer looked at Gino. The young man's arrogance reminded Lucifer of his arrogant appearance when he was young. Young people are always fearless, full of enthusiasm and full of fantasies. This is a good thing. Lucifer had a smile on his lips, and his handsome face had a faint smile, but his golden pupils exuded cold murderous intent. However, overconfidence will turn into arrogance, and arrogance will make people fall into hell. Arrogant, Gino sneered and shook his head. Maybe you misunderstood me, Mr. Lucifer. This is not arrogance, but comes from confidence in strength. Gino didn't finish his words, but Lucifer raised his arms in front of him in an instant. Boom! A fist slammed into the fallen angel's arm with a violent storm. The extreme speed tore through the air, causing a scream to break through the air. The collision between God's creation and the steel body caused a roaring sound. The roar and tremors spread around the air, shattering the sturdy bulletproof glass. Boom, boom, boom. Once you take action, you won't stop. Gino kept swinging his fists and hitting Lucifer like a violent storm. In just 1 second, he threw thousands of punches, and the terrifying power that could shake the earth kept hitting Lucifer's arms. Kakaka. The solid floor beneath his feet also shattered. Boom. As the cement flew away, 2 figures hit from the 9th floor to the 8th floor. Another powerful and heavy punch hit Lucifer's arm hard, and then another kick hit Lucifer's cheek hard. The creature's standpoint was wrapped in leather boots and he trampled the fallen angel's cheeks hard. Bang! The huge foot force blasted away the king of hell, leaving a dark shoe print on his perfect white cheek. Da da da! Lucifer staggered back dozens of steps to stabilize his body. The force of his legs caused the stone slab under his feet to break. A trace of anger appeared on Lucifer's handsome face. Mortal! He let out an inhuman roar, and his beautiful cheeks seemed to be distorted and gradually became more ferocious. How dare you! How dare you humiliate me! He roared up to the sky, and violent bloody energy surged around. Lucifer has always been proud. According to legend, The reason why this former angel and son of the morning star was demoted to heaven was because he committed the crime of pride. Such a proud existence had its dignity trampled on by a small human being. For a strong man like him, dignity is sometimes more important than life. With the surge of bloody energy, Lucifer also started his counterattack. Aha! With a flick of his hand, Lucifer used hell magic to condense a strong angel sword. The tip of the sharp long sword pointed at Gino. Lucifer raised his left cheek with shoe prints and showed a sickly smile. Human, I want to use your flesh and blood to feed the hell dogs that guard the gate. Lucifer was roaring, and he saw Gino shrugging. The young man had a calm expression on his face, and even stretched out his hand to hook his fingers at Lucifer, and sneered, if you have this strength, then let me witness it. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.